Welcome to another episode of the After Action podcast with my good friend, Erik Bartell. You are someone who steals my fitness regimen.
I'm your body double. Is that what you're getting at?
Don't curse yourself with that. You aim higher. Damn it, Erik, I have to cut that. Because I can't. I really just wanted to take the time to
Let me tell you about
the king of Chicago. Yeah. Dude, what are you doing? Are you doing like a press conference for the Lakers? I will literally cut this part. Cut it all out. It's been a long time coming. We've done so many things together. So many things. We've done MrBeast.
I didn't know who MrBeast was.
I mean, I didn't either. She's my daughter.
They wouldn't tell us what we were going to get for it. Well, you and Austin are like, yo, usually the videos are $100,000. And I'm like, usually? And they're like, yeah, sometimes they're like 30. And I'm like, sometimes they're nothing. I'm like, so we could walk away with absolutely nothing.
This episode was sponsored by Medical. Every veteran deserves respect, competency, and clarity when pursuing a disability claim. Of course, we all know the frustration is much more common. If you're looking for a better path and documentation that strengthens your disability rating request, start with our sponsor, Medical. Re's team of professionals work with a network of experienced physicians, and they've already provided meaningful medical evidence for more than 25,000 veterans. And while they can't guarantee what the VA will decide, 95%, let me say that again, 95% of their clients reported receiving a disability rating of 70% or higher. That's because when you connect with Medical, they take the time to explain your options before you pay for anything. Free consultations. So don't give up on a stalled process or settle for an unfavorable decision from the VA. Cut through the frustration with accurate medical evidence and a streamlined approach that allows you to pursue your claim confidently. Head over to remedical.com, that's Romeo Echo Echo medical.com to book your free consultation. Check out our link in the podcast section for more details.
Welcome to another episode of the After Action podcast with my good friend, Erik Bartell.
I'm loving the sign.
You're loving the sign?
I'm loving the sign.
Yeah. You were there when it was just signs. Now it's a sign of the times. Right?
How long have you been waiting to use that?
It just came to me. I wish I had more thought in my comedic efforts, but no, it really just came to me. But you are someone who steals my fitness regimen and who has modeled most of, I'm just kidding. No, you're someone who's been a big...
I'm your body double? Is that where you're getting at?
Don't curse yourself with that. You aim higher. No, you're someone who's always been kind to me and stuff. And so it's been a long time coming. We've done so many things together. So many things. We've done MrBeast. Like we've gone to bases. We're the ones who started going to the Army base, and there's so much to touch on, but I really just wanted to take the time to really dig in and talk about the @real Erik Bartell and the real Erik Bartell. Right? That's beautiful. The king of Chicago.
Hot dog king of Chicago, maybe.
Yeah, the real lip from Shameless. Yeah. No, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming.
We've in literally a matter of 4 years of doing stuff together, we've had a lot of fun, and we've done some pretty big bucket list things. So it's been kind of beautiful, but I like being your friend, Zach.
Yeah, the feeling's mutual. And what I always think is if it all stops today, most people won't believe half the things I tell them. And I think that means that I've had a great adventure. That's all I think about this. That's how I think about life now, or at least the current state. Is it some type of incredible adventure that doesn't make sense? Because when I put it all down on paper, it's just what do you mean? And I was just oh, no, that's just what happened on that Wednesday. And I try to not be, what's the word about it? Braggadocious, honestly. I really don't. I know I have that false vibrato about me, but not vibrato. Bravado. Vibrato is when your voice is a singing thing. But it's really just a low-level defensive mechanism. But it's been so fun. And I remember I was trying to think about this. How did we get introduced?
Dude,
who was it that connected us? I know it was somebody was DM Erik, but I can't remember who. Do you remember who it was?
No, I just remember
They're probably not a friend
got
anymore.
that one workout in.
But it was prior to that, before you were come over to my house and work out. I can't remember what it was. I literally thought about this. I was asking Christy. I was like, "Do you remember how we met?"
We're gonna
Erik?
have to dive back into the DMs or something, but
Yeah, because you were over at your place in East Nashville at the time.
No, I was in Brentwood
You were you
because we had moved back from New York. We were staying in North Nashville at that Airbnb.
That's where it was. You were in North Nashville. Yeah.
Okay. And
Who
then
introduced us? Was it Bravo Sierra?
I don't know. That was a long time ago. Long time ago.
2021?
2020.
Wait. It's coming to me. Drunk old grab. I think that's it.
Was it Rob?
I think it was Rob.
Okay.
Shout out Rob.
Shout out Rob. Thanks, bro.
No free shout outs, but I do feel like it was him, because that makes sense to me. Because at that time he had told me about Ben, who was on The Bachelor. Shout out Ben.
This was pre-Bachelor.
Well, no, but Ben was on The Bachelor. Ben was on The Bachelor in 2020. I know that for sure.
Was it 20 or 1?
20. Well, I think it aired in 21, but
Okay.
I just know it was like the most watched Bachelor ever, or at least during that time.
I'm like hipster Ben. Like, I knew Ben when he had like 4,000 followers, and then all of a sudden he had 400,000. And I'm like, all right, well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get it. He's handsome. But, but for me, what I loved about it is that I was so worried they were just going to like make him. They had put veterans on The Bachelor before, and I think me and you actually know most of them. But they're characters, because it is written. Yeah. It's actually scripted. Spoiler alert, all of it's scripted. And like the storylines that they develop and stuff for them are just like, they're kind of broken men. Yeah. Is the most accurate way I would describe all of them, is that they're broken people and they're kind of like lost souls. And so every time they put a veteran on it, I'm just like, please, no, please just don't be like, someone's like, I'm sorry, I can't love you right now. It's because of war. And it's, but I would like to sing you a song. And then you're just like, come on, man, please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. So Ben was on there, and then like he talked about his stuff in a very brave and big and public way. And so that was when I got turned on to him. And then I think it was Rob. It has to be Rob, because that feels like the path in my head. Because you were still just like in your shirtless era of like, I do fitness. Flex. Turn. What's the best here? Give me something up front. What's the best pose for a fitness influencer online?
Are we going male or female? My favorite.
Give me both.
Favorite is the female arm day.
Female arm day. Here we go. Why? Question though. Female arm day. Why is your posterior chain poking out so much?
I sort of.
Yeah, arm day. It's weird. Your arm's not flexed that much.
It doesn't matter what day it is.
Okay,
Let's be honest, that's the pose.
Now give me the male pose. Give me the best male pose.
Oh, if it's
average height, yeah.
Do that, a little lat spread.
Yeah, the lat spread.
But yeah. I've watched some of these guys' videos, and I'm like, why do they all look 10 times bigger than I know they really are? And I'm not very good with camera angles and lighting, and I was like, I'm gonna spend like an hour studying this, and I just side by side. Holy crap! All of the cameras, they're going
down to up, right?
They're 2 feet off the ground looking up.
Isn't that bad though?
And then they just drop the lighting on their phone, and all of a sudden they look like Greek gods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck yeah.
Also, you can tell too that they're just kind of posturing. A lot of it. So me and my boys, we used to call it. So you guys don't have this in the Army, which we'll talk about too. But in the Marine Corps, I'm looking at the clock, see how long it took. In the Marine Corps, like we would always talk about, you roll up your sleeves and everything. But whenever you're in sleeves, you don't have to. You're always hitting a passive flex, is what we call it. Yeah. Like you're just like, what? And then like the pipes are about to burst. Hey, sorry, let me grab that.
Dude, it was like the year I was getting out of the Army, and that's when the Army was like, all right, you guys can roll your sleeves.
Y'all can do that now? They can do that now?
Yeah, they started allowing it, and it was I think they probably stopped it after the first year because it was so dumb, dude. It's just like the Army top was not made for rolling your sleeves.
Yeah.
And
the Marine Corps one is obviously, but yeah.
It just looks so bad. And then the Marine Corps has been doing it for so long, it looked like a copycat. Like
I don't think is there a military uniform that has short sleeves? Is there one? I don't think any of them have pulled off of any branch of any country. I don't think anyone has it.
There's
of their fatigues.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. Under the dress blues, there's like the
Yeah,
short
all the
sleeve
all the
version.
dresses, dress uniforms. There's like a Chucks, and you know
Yeah,
that stuff
that's it.
works. I mean, they look goofy in general. You're not gonna save that. Like
I mean,
the collar's weird, and the sleeves go out to here, and there's
Vietnam era, you just cut your sleeves off.
yeah, like a boss, dude. I mean, that works really well.
So
I don't know. I have no, I don't think. Maybe the British. I think the British have it. I feel like they had it in Afghanistan, but maybe they just cut them. Who knows? Those colonials. You never know what they're up to these days. Anyone who values tea that much, you can't trust.
tea over teeth, baby. Tea over teeth.
Tea over teeth. Well, there goes our
audience.
British audience. No, dude, yeah. So I was thinking about how we met, but like, I just want to take the time. Like, you have such an incredible story of someone who's overcome adversity and stuff, and you're someone who's really, really close to me, and I love you. But when I think about you as like peak Midwestern success story, right? Because you grew up in Chicago, right, and late '80s, early '90s, and we're like the same age. Easy killer.
I'm not pushing 40 like you.
I'm 36. I'm not 39. Chill. How old are you?
33.
Okay, yeah, we're worlds apart.
You're old as hell.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. That's fine.
I still love you though.
No, that's fine. I mean,
I don't know why I keep doing this. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, do it. It helps. It helps the audio. Doesn't help. Get on the mic more. You see? That does not. Just get here. Like, try and make that. Don't do that.
Let me tell you about 1990 Chicago.
Dude, what are you doing? Are you doing like a press conference for the Lakers? Like, what are you doing right now? He's like pulling it. No, tell me. I mean, what was it like? Because you're growing up, right? And you're in the Midwest. You're in Chicago. I mean, I have such an.
It sucked, Zach. It sucked.
Tell me.
So we'll just get in my story a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I think it's very powerful.
So very simply, I grew up in Chicago. I grew up with a single mother, and she was not prepared to be a mother, is the nicest way of putting it. Love my mom very much. She was a great mother in many ways, but was doing 80s things, let's put it that way. And so we grew up pretty poor. First few years of my life, we lived with my grandfather. He was one of those guys who very of his generation in the sense of like World War II vet and provided for his family, but didn't do anything else. He wasn't an I love you guy. My grandmother died before I was born, so my mom grew up without a mother. She just grew up with him. And so it explains a lot about how she also didn't know how to love. Mm-hmm. And so after a couple of years, my grandfather kicked us out, and we were on the streets. We lived in a shelter for about 3 years before we were able to get put in housing. Bounced around. I couldn't tell you how many houses or apartments when I was a kid. We would just live there for a year, get evicted, go to another one. Live there for a year, get evicted, go to another one.
What was there a reason he kicked you out? I'm sorry, I just wanted.
He was an asshole.
Yeah.
My mom wouldn't get her life together, and he could care less. So he was like, "Get out." Didn't care that.
Was that kind
I
of?
was like 3, and I didn't know any difference.
Was that kind of where y'all left that?
They had a relationship after that.
Yeah.
I mean,
What about you and him?
Kinda. He died when I was like 8, I think. So I didn't know much of him either. But that's the few memories I have of him. And then it was just like kind of me and my mom. I had her sister, my aunt, would help out from time to time, take care of me when she was either working or doing whatever. But most of my like childhood was just like kind of running the streets of Chicago, which today kind of is like, how the fuck did I survive? But just going out, playing with my friends. We would play like it wasn't like here where there was just parks everywhere, in the sense like Chicago has a ton of public parks, but not where like I lived exactly. And so we would go play football in the street, and cars would come and we'd move off to the side, or we would play in the front grass. But like that was like my childhood, and I loved it. And like my school had a playground, but it was all concrete, so like it was better to play in the street.
In my mind, everything's made of concrete.
Yeah, right.
Like the basketball goals, like the tether ball. It's just a concrete ball you're all hitting.
Yeah, there's an obsession with concrete back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so
because of the mafia.
I would like in early grade school, I would get out of school. I would get on a public bus, take the bus to my mom's work, hang out with my mom at her work until she got off. She worked at a thrift shop at the time.
Okay.
Hang out there until she got off, and then we would go home, right? Or I would just hang out, right? I would go hang out with friends and play, do my homework. Like I was very independent at the time. I would wake up, do my own thing. My mom would wake up after me, so I would have to wake up, eat, make my cereal, go to school, come home. And so I became very independent at a young age, and because she wasn't on her shit, I also was like, hey, Mom, like, did you pay the electric bill? Did you pay the rent? Or like, are we getting evicted? And so like at 9, I was very well aware of these things, and also like trying to make sure that I had a place to live.
When you're going through all this stuff and you're like looking at your life, I mean, not looking at your life, when you're living it at 9, are you aware? You beat me to it. Obviously you were aware of your circumstance. Were you aware of everyone else's?
Not really, to be fair. Even when I like lived
As
in the
like
shelter,
a scale, you know
like
what I mean?
one of my best friends when I lived in the shelter lived in like an apartment building next to it. And at the time, even early childhood, I had no real understanding that I was like poorer than him, right? Like everyone was kind of poor in the neighborhood I grew up in, and I was just like, I guess, more poor.
Yeah.
But even then, like, because my mom worked at the thrift shop, like I always had clothes, like I always had toys, like we would just take it. And so it wasn't the worst case.
Yeah.
I didn't feel poor because I guess I would get stuff. Like it wasn't like I just didn't have shit. And my mom was a scrapper. Like she's probably a lot of the reason why I am the way I am when it comes to like survival. And so her mentality on things, when I'd be like, hey, are we paying the rent this month? And she'd be like, we'll pay half of it, but don't worry, like it all works out. And like, to be very fair, I probably had a lot of anxiety as a child, but eventually now as an adult, I'm like, it all worked out. Everything always works out. You just kind of have to fucking find the hole, find where you can go and what's next. And we'd get evicted and we'd find another place.
Yeah.
And so my mentality nowadays is like, I'm never going to be as bad as I was. And so it can always be worse. And at the end of the day, as long as you keep pushing forward, it'll always work out.
I couldn't agree more. But how long, you said you were in I have so many questions. You were in a homeless shelter for 3 years.
Yeah.
Did you know it was a homeless shelter?
I didn't know what a homeless shelter was, right? Like I knew I lived in a shelter, but no one ever made me feel like bad about it. And like, to me, it was just like, oh, there was other kids there. There was people, like they're just a huge building where all these people lived together. And it wasn't like, it was actually some of my better memories as a child, simply because there was other people there to care about me, to give me attention. And I had no concern about whether or not we were about to get kicked out. Because it was like a year thing. You had to apply for it, you get in, you're there for a year. And then at the end of the year, you either reapply or you get placed in new housing.
Is it like a big open room with like beds and stuff, or is it like
no? It was like
apartments.
It was like rooms, and so there was like almost like dorms.
Okay,
like me and my mom had one room. It was a tiny room. There was just a bed in it, but there was like community bathrooms and stuff like that. And so it like wasn't a horrible like public shelter in that sense.
Yeah. What's interesting is that there is, I believe there's stuff. They say that like humans are supposed to live in community like that.
Yeah.
And how good it is. Like you're talking about like,
I mean, they say it takes a tribe, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to have a tribe, and we've gotten away from that in certain ways, but we have like online communities, which I think are like the potato chips of community. Like
Yeah.
it tastes good at the time to realize like long term it's bad for you.
Yeah.
Because there's something so much more valuable about like real human connection. And people did learn that a little bit during the pandemic, but they've forgotten it as a whole, in my opinion. Because like, things move on.
Yeah.
There's always something like, well, it'll all equal out in the end, whatever you want to say, like it does. But no, I'm having like this memory of like, I remember being in like elementary school, and I knew things were different. I didn't know how bad they were. Nothing to the extent of what you've gone through, but like the first time that the teacher came up to me and she's like, "Hey, just so you know, you're not gonna have before school meals anymore." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you, teacher." And she didn't tell anyone else in the class, and it was like halfway during the class, I was like, "Wait, why didn't you tell anyone else?" And then like it just appeared to me in my head that like, oh, I was the only one. Me and my brother were the only ones getting before school meals, and we were on these meal programs and stuff. But initially, there was just this like shame, embarrassment, anger, like all these things about my situation in life. Did you ever have any of that?
To a degree. I think for the most part, and it's probably a blessing, I'm just like so oblivious, I guess, to what people think, or I just don't care. And I grew up that way. And I think that also came from my mom. Like my mom could give a shit what people cared about her. And I mean, she was mean, dude.
Yeah.
And I love her for it, but she was also not afraid of anyone. And she, like, I remember one time, so Chicago, we have this thing, right? And when it snows like crazy, if you shovel out your parking spot, it's your parking spot, like for the rest of the snow.
Is that Chicago rules?
That's Chicago's like city rules.
Okay.
And so I remember this one time, I was probably like 9. We lived in this one apartment building, and she shoveled out the spot. And she parked her car in there. In Chicago, it's wild. You'll drive there in the winter. You'll see lawn chairs, the craziest stuff, just holding people's spots. And if you take someone's spot, like, one, it's a dick move. I don't know how it is nowadays. Back then, like, it was kind of like, okay, hopefully you're not bigger than that person.
Yeah.
And my mom's 5'3", 120 pounds. But so this dude took her spot, and she just lit him up, like screaming at him, like threatening to beat his ass. This dude's like probably 6 feet, could care less, walks off, and she goes in our house, comes back out just with a kitchen knife, and just slashes all his fucking tires.
Your mom?
My mom. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And like, that was her temper. And so like, imagine what that was like growing up. If I said something stupid or whatever, like she used to have a wooden spoon she'd love to hit me with until she broke it like off on my ass.
Yeah. Classic mom tool.
Dude, wooden spoon.
A classic mom weapon. That's
a
real weapon of opportunity.
She also had like one of those like 90s like silver rings that were like just jutted out, and she would flip it backwards and smack me over the head with it.
Where did she grow up?
She grew up in Chicago.
She grew up in Chicago. That's some gangsters. When you see someone, and I don't have any jewelry on now because I'm going to the gym, so it's in the car. I love you, wife. But whenever someone like rolls their jewelry around, like
it's there for a purpose.
You know what that was? That's the 90s cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
Is when someone rolls their jewelry around, they're like, "Are you sure? Okay." Like it's about to happen.
So that was like growing up with her, and I'm like, and so that's how her temper was. Like she could care less what people saw, what people thought. And so I, as a child, was very self-conscious about how she acted and how it looked and what people thought. But then as I got older, I kind of realized like that was almost a superpower for her in a lot of senses, because like we were poor, she was a woman, like she didn't have much power as society gives it to someone, and yet no one fucked with her. And so in many ways she was like the loudest in the room. And there's ways to do it in a way that is meaningful. And she was really fucking mean to people, but they loved her because the people she cared about, she took care of them like no other. And so as I like grew up, I kind of, you see what your parents do, you see who your parents are, you see how people treat them. and you understand the good things that they do that you may want to adopt as who you are and who you become, and you see the bad things and you learn from them. And most of my mom's traits, I would say I saw what she did and I learned how to do the opposite or how to do a better reaction or better thing.
Yeah.
But there were a few things like how she treated people and how people reacted to her that I was like, actually, that's probably the only thing holding this together right now.
Yeah, dude, I can't imagine if she didn't have that energy where she's like, that's my parking spot. I bet that dude still tells that story. Somewhere he's like, dude.
Oh, he called the cops on her? She was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Dude, your mom's got, she's 10 toes hanging. She doesn't care, man.
Oh.
Dude, that's incredible. And he's like, that's weird. Your mom's like, that's weird, huh?
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't park there. that's kind of weird.
Probably
huh?
should have not moved my fucking shit.
Yeah, dude. I like that. I like that. But like what you're speaking towards too, and this is something that, I adopted, especially from my grandfather. He had that type of work ethic where, and stuff where that's where I got most of from my grandfather and, movies is where I took most of my, what am I looking for? Guidance on how to be a man, because I, like you, didn't have that in the household. And moms can do a lot, but they can't really teach that. That's just a fact, especially to a boy. But, if you don't have that survival instinct to like, what is it called? That moxie, that, what is it?
Grit. I don't know.
Grit's a really good, if you don't have it, you're not good. The world will chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it obviously left a good impression on you.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, look at you. You're like, you're playing in concrete jungle gyms and stuff or whatever, and you're like, this is fun, or like street ball.
No, I mean, that's like what I'm saying, though. Like, there was definitely life lessons where you're like, fuck, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
And then there were life lessons where you're like, man, sometimes the rules don't apply.
So I have to ask this because I need to know what it was like. Because I'm sports-wise, I've been taking a beating for a few years, and Derrick Henry just left. The Titans fired Mike Vrabel. Horrible decision that they made, and so to jump to a sport that's legendary, literally one of the greatest eras of sports. Do you have any memories? Because I think this puts you on track of the '90s Bulls.
Oh my God! Honestly,
is it as beautiful and awesome as it was in the dance? Is it the Last Dance documentary?
Yeah.
So good.
I didn't, growing up in Chicago, at that age, I was not even a teenager yet.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the magnitude of it, if that makes sense, right?
That does make sense.
I was a Cubs fan, and we had Sammy Sosa, and that was really cool. I remember watching, that was like one of my few memories with my grandfather was watching Sammy Sosa play. This was pre, steroids, cork bat, all that stuff. It was just, man, this guy can hit a ball.
That's weird how big he is. That's all he does. He just does this. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Did you see? Was that when they did the race, him and McGuire?
Oh,
I think it was.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Yeah,
that was like '98, I think.
Ooh. Dude, y'all had a run.
And the White Sox were kind of mean at the time, like. And then we had the Bulls, and everything was Michael Jordan. But I'm just like, everyone loves Michael Jordan, of course. Like, no, but it was really cool, and
it just feels like it was fever pitch all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, my mom didn't care less about sports. She was more into hockey, actually, and that was like the era that the Blackhawks weren't doing much. But my grandfather loved baseball, and so I always remember there was always Cubs playing, and then I just use sports as an outlet more so than anything, and I think you probably can say the same thing, but at least growing up in like a broken home per se, you look for excuses to not be there.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Like, that's when there's no one there consistently, and I had my little brother I had to take care of too, and that's a whole thing. But I was like a journeyman child. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I was always doing something, and like we would like join these teams or like go to classes or not classes to like sports or whatever, and then it was all like funded by a church, and then eventually like they'd be like, y'all have to pay something, and then that would force us into having to quit. But yeah, I was always looking for something and some way to channel my instincts is what I'll say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like, I played any sport I could just because I was like, one, right, it gives me an outlet for that aggressive energy that you naturally feel powerless as a little kid in general. And then situation dictates feeling even less powerful, right? And then also it's like, okay, here's a positive real male role model to look up to and emulate in a way that we don't have in our home life.
Yeah.
And then also it's like, cool, I got something to do after school for another couple hours that I don't have to go home.
Yeah. And be like, okay, there's nothing to do here.
Yeah.
Is that when you started to really fall in love with fitness?
High school, I think. For me, sports was like, it provided a level of regiment and like discipline that I did not have at home. That I think all kids crave, right? I think kids crave some level of discipline because it helps them develop. If your life is chaos, you can't develop properly. And so it provided that for me. You want to expand on that?
No, keep going. That's
Okay.
it. Say that again.
So sports provided a level of discipline for me that all kids crave, right? If your life is chaos, you can't develop properly. And so for me, my home life was chaos, and because that's why I loved school almost, and also sports in particular, because it gives you that chaos, and also as a poor kid growing up, right, it gives you an even playing field. It doesn't matter if this kid's fucking goes home to a mansion or not. If you're playing basketball or football against him, none of that is going to help him on that field. He may have nicer gear than you, but at the end of the day, if you're grittier, if you work harder, you will be better than him.
It's the great equalizer.
It is. And
I do remember having that feeling now that you say it. I mean, for me, I didn't know anything about fitness. I was so awkward in middle school. It was brutal. It was brutal. You know, people talk about body positivity and stuff now. Would have liked a little bit of it back then when my pants said husky on them. It said the sizes for boys' pants at this time were slim, regular, and husky. That is what they said. And I remember very clear my meemaw being like, "Here, Sonny, I got you some husky jeans." And I'd just be like, "Cool, thank you." Like,
funny.
I'll carry that for way too long. But I
get that though. I was scrawny. I grew up skinny, mainly because I probably didn't eat proper nutrition.
Dude, keep talking on that. Keep talking on that.
And I was short, and I didn't hit a growth spurt probably until sophomore year of high school is when I kind of like evened out. But I was short growing up. I was scrawny, and I would get picked on all the time. And literally would go back to like my mom giving me that example of like, okay, she's the smallest person I know, and people are afraid of her. And I honestly pulled a lot of that, like growing up in shitty areas of metropolitan cities. Like, yeah, there's gangs, but also there's just, it's more fucking animalistic kind of like survival mode because everyone's growing up in similar poverty levels.
Yeah.
And so people are going to look for reasons to be better than other kids in school, and it happens now. I think it was worse back then because, like you said, now we have all these movements being like, oh man, let's be nice to each other. Back then it wasn't like that, right? Like, people would get pushed into fucking lockers and they get their asses beat if they showed weakness.
Yes.
If you showed emotion, and that's like, I mean, you joke about it when we talk every now and then, but like, the reason I'm so emotionless is because I was groomed per se by my environment that if I showed emotion or if I showed any level of weakness, I would be at risk of getting my ass beat or worse, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't relate to anything more, especially because we were in like before school programs and after school programs, and like it was chaos. And I remember like someone picking on my little brother, and I was like, "You don't do that." Yeah. And they were like, "What are you gonna do about it?" And I was told like, "You don't let anybody pick on the family." So I just like hit a kid. I got suspended like every year I was in school. Like, I set records. They literally brought me in elementary school, this one school I was going to. I switched schools every year. That's literally how bad I was.
Yeah.
They brought me in once, and they go, "Mr. Bell, you know, due to a state law change, we'll no longer be able to spank you." And my principal was like forlorn and just like, we used to be a country. Like, he was so upset that he couldn't spank me. Now, all things being equal, did I need discipline? For sure. Was I kind of a maniac? For sure. Were they all kind of bad teachers? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, because like no one was really paying attention to us. I vandalized stuff. I got all sorts of things. Like, the main thing is, why was I like left alone for so long?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it though. Like, what was causing it? And that's our.
I mean, I was literally like just walking around this school by myself all the time. Like, not crazy about the idea of letting a stranger ever spank my child. That would never happen.
No.
But it was just like, you're talking about that chaos. It's like, for me, I learned early on a really good way to solve my problems was to not
punch him
be
in the face.
was to not be afraid was the main thing. And
or at least not show that you are.
that's
Yeah.
well, I would tell myself I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
You know, because so much of it's like, it's, you know, someone's like, "Oh, I'll punch you." Like, I think it's my cousin. Yeah, he's about 4 years older than me. It's like, someone says they're going to punch you. He's like, "Punch him."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, they're about to punch you or they're not, but either way, you should hit them first." And I was like, "Cool." And so, like, that stuck with me. Like, I'm going to punch you. Just pop. And then, like, it's over. But you're in trouble, but whatever, it's over. But that'll never happen again.
Yeah.
And then, you know, teenage boys, middle school teenage boys especially, they're like low grade hyenas. So like after that, you're like, you usually end up becoming friends with that guy, which is the weirdest part.
No, I agree. And I think I took a different approach though. Is for me, what I've came to realize is that most people who threaten violence aren't actually about violence.
That's a fact.
And so
Now they're about comments on the internet.
for me, it was like, all right, the few times I had to actually like defend myself or scrap, it wasn't someone being like, "I'm going to punch you," like, I'm about to hit you. Like, no one talks about it if they're about to actually hit
Yeah.
you. It was the people who just straight up swung.
Yeah.
Like the time I would get punched in the face, and then it's like, all right, and then you got to make a calculated decision. Like, am I going to fight this dude, or am I going to like stone cold just take that hit and be like, all right, it's not worth it. But like, I manned up. I didn't cry. Like, as a little ass kid, like these thoughts going through your head, like,
Don't you do it.
I'm going to earn some respect.
Yeah.
And I mean, it worked out for me in most cases, but like also like just walking down the street being like, like as a teenager being like, am I going to get jumped because I'm walking up to these dudes and they're walking up to me, and how do you diffuse this situation where I don't get the shit beat out of me?
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, I got really good at reading people, diffusing situations, like figuring out what people want and how much I can push or pull, and when I just need to like react. And it's all that I say it in different conversations, but like I would never trade my childhood, my upbringing for anything, because it made me who I am and it made me the person I am. And those life experiences have gotten me where I am. Had I not grown up in those experiences and been tested in so many different ways and really had to like figure out who I was as an adult as a kid, I'd probably be fucking off right now like half these other people who are in the same age bracket as us, but have no life experience to lean on and grow from.
Yeah. I often worry that everyone I know, for the most part, that I view to be successful in whatever area or field that they're in, their childhood, for the most part, was rough.
Yeah.
Like 60-40 at least rough. Like there's more dark than there is good. And it does something to you. It's, you know, trauma is a blessing and a curse. You know, the blessing is what it gives you. The curse is what it takes from you.
Yeah.
And you don't know until way after it happens, like what that'll look like. But, you know, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do now as, you know, a husband and a father. Like what I do, like take away stuff from my daughters to like make their life harder. That's not fair to them, you know?
It's such a balance, right? It's like, how do I raise a child that is grounded and understands half of what I understand without giving them trauma?
Yeah, I don't want to give them trauma. So like the best thing we found for them in particular is the adversity that you get from athletics, right? You know, you will win, you will lose, it will be hard, but what I love about it is it does put a path before them of like, this is how you accomplish a goal. Not succeed, but this is how you accomplish a goal. You dig in, you practice, you repeat. Like everything else in life, it's really not that complex. Like how do you lose weight? Eat less, move more. Like it's all the same thing. If you want to get better at this thing, repetition, repetition, repetition.
No.
And, you know, or I can be like, hey, here's like bologna and bread, survive for a week. I don't want to do that to them.
No, and I think that's it though. Like I think sports have developed over time. There's a reason that they have developed, and it's play. Play is how children practice life. They play house, they play kitchen, they play sports. Sports is a way for us to, in a disciplined, organized manner, show them that if they work hard at something, if they practice over and over, they're going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they'll have wins, but this just one season, and then there's always a season after it, right? Like, there's no end state, and hopefully, eventually, they understand that the journey is what's important.
Yeah, and just to see them go through it has been so amazing. It's tough, dude, because like a big part of me is like those are my kids. Like I have 3 buttons and they all have my last name. Everything else is fine. I don't care what people say about me. I don't care what people say about, anything else. They can make fun of what I do. That's fine. You can say I'm dumb. That's fine. If you touch anything that has my last name, like I've done worse things for lesser reasons. Yeah. And it's hard, especially when you're trying to be a father or a husband and you're just like making it up.
Yeah.
And I don't, this has become like a real dad talk podcast, but it's just coming to me. It's just like, it's so hard. And you know this too, of like, what would a father do right now? Because a big part of me is I lean towards nurturing naturally. And I know it might be hard to believe. I hope it's not.
No.
That I lean towards nurturing them more is my initial instinct, honestly. To be like, it's okay, I'll take care of you forever. Because I will gladly do whatever it takes to protect all 3 of them. But I know now at their ages, as they're teenagers, I have to do less of that and more of like, okay, you have to learn this lesson. And I hate making them learn lessons. I really do. I don't like doing it, but I know I have to do it.
No.
Right? Because my goal is to make them so successful and independent that they have the ability to leave when they're 18 and be able to take on the world and conquer it as they see fit. But it sucks because I don't want them to leave. Like, I just don't want them to go. But
no, I think it's such an interesting, paradigm that we have very similar fathering kind of techniques. I don't know what you want to call it, right? We're very involved. We're very active in our children's lives. And we came from not even just our upbringings, but a generation where parents were not involved in their children's lives.
They couldn't give a fuck. I'm going to say it. Our parents were selfish fucking assholes.
We talk about this, me and my wife, all the time. It's like, we were raised by the TV.
Yeah. And then they want us to take care of them as they get older. Come on, dude.
And then they got the balls to talk shit about tablet time. I'm like, do you know how much TV I watched as a child?
You gave me a key. Like, that was my way through life. I got a key to the door.
I learned most of my life lessons from the Andy Griffith Show, okay?
One of the best shows out there.
Like, my God.
A man who negotiates before he seeks violence. But he never even carried a gun.
Do you have any memory of your parents, like, sitting on the floor playing with you?
No.
Same.
And I remember doors being open.
But that's my point. It's like, all right, so one, we turned out all right, even if that was the baseline. And 2, it's like how involved we are as a generation, but also as individuals who were, I don't want to say neglected, but not really nurtured in that way.
But that is neglect.
I think history will tell, right? But
I am history. I'm telling you. It is what is neglect. Like, I have a very clear memory of my father. So my parents were divorced, and every now and then, to avoid spiking his child support, which he totally paid all the time, he wouldn't buy it. The one Christmas gift we got one year was just like a .22 rifle for my grandfather that he said was his, and a .410 shotgun that he said was whatever, right? And so I remember, like, he's
such
like, all right,
different childhood.
He's
right
like,
there.
go play. It's $100 rifle. It's nothing.
I just meant like you got a gun as a kid.
Yeah, I know.
I found guns in bushes as a kid, but they weren't given to me.
No, but he'd be like, go play, and like he opened up the back door to this land that he lived on in a trailer in the middle of nowhere, Tipton County, and he's like, just go. And like, I went out there in the woods with a .22 rifle and decimated a vermin population for like 10 square miles. But when I think about it, I was like, I didn't know what multiplication meant, but I was just like,
natural.
I'm like Jackson and Saving Private Ryan. Lord, keep my aim straight and strong. Cow. And he'd come back and be like, "What'd you get?" And I was like, "Oh no," just like blasting stuff. And
So
like
I started blasting.
yeah, so I started blasting. Yeah, but like that's and that's what's so beautiful too, especially as like dad talk again, is to like that is the fun part about being a dad now is that you and I have used it in a way that honestly, I don't think anyone would blame us if we were like distant parents, but I'm so desperate to break that cycle, and you know, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about what you're doing now to break that cycle, your career in the Army, and all the things you're doing with Echelon Fitness, and your favorite celebrity that you trained when we come back. Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. If you want to continue to hear more stories like this and to help us grow the podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to also drop a rating and review. Every bit helps. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the episode. And we're back.
Thank you to our sponsors.
Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to Remedical and everyone that helps keep the lights on here and to tell these stories that we feel are important. We were talking about fatherhood, and I wanted to go ahead and take the jump into what got you into the military. So you, I'm just going to give you some credit here. You obviously researched it, unlike my enlisted ass. I just went,
Oh, no, I had no idea what I was doing.
Not a bit, none at all.
Have I not told you the story?
No, you haven't told this story.
Okay, so
To me, at least.
got out of high school as a poor kid. The one thing you have going for you is college scholarships, right?
Yeah.
And so I did my FAFSA. I applied to all kinds of different random schools. Application fees are waived again because you're poor. And so I just applied to like 10 schools. I ended up getting into DePaul University, which was in Chicago. It's a private school, super nice school, charges way too much money every semester for kids to go there. And they gave me a full ride. And so between my grants, my academic scholarships, I ended up getting a football scholarship from my high school because of just like being like a top performer and then also top student there. They gave me money to go to college. They're like, hey, you might actually need this and use it. And so I got into college for free at a really good private institution. And I got there and I spent about one quarter there and was like, I hate this place. It was just like nothing but rich kids. And we talked about child upbringing, right? I was super mature for my age. I was 18, but I probably acted like a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
All these kids were just partying, not going to class, could care less. I was taking 300 level classes freshman year because I had gotten AP credit from high school, and I was like, I'm going to graduate early. Like I'm not paying for this. I'm going to get my college degree, whatever.
They're all riding high, and you're like, I think the housing crisis is going to happen. They're like quite poor.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I had no interest in partying. Like I had no interest in drinking and doing drugs. I grew up around all of that. And I was like, that's not who I want to be. Like I've seen what happens to people who do drugs. Like, Mom.
Let me stop you there for a second. Something I couldn't agree with more is when you see addiction at its lowest or highest level, whatever you want to call it, it does make me scared of everything like that.
Yeah.
And I can't shake it. Like most of my aunts and uncles, like, it's drugs and alcohol have killed a lot of them, actually.
You talk about when you said, like, was there anything that, like, embarrassed you? I remember, like, one of the key memories I had was, like, grade school. And, like, my friends thought I smoked. I'm like, I don't smoke. And it was because my mom would smoke so much in the house that I would just smell like cigarettes wherever I went. And I just didn't even know it because that was just like what I smelled. And so eventually I like understood that it was just like all of my clothes smelled like cigarettes. And like, that was one of the things where I'm like, okay, like there's nothing I can do about this, but it's embarrassing. Right. And so like, that was like one of the things where I'm like, all right, I'm never going to smoke a cigarette. I've never smoked a cigarette. But yeah, so going to college, I'm like, I don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs. I'm not interested in it. And it's not cool to me. Like I've seen exactly like you said, where that goes. And up until that point, I wasn't into discipline, right? But like I was still really searching for it. Like sports, school, those were my safe spaces. and spaces where it didn't matter if I was poor or if I didn't have something going for me, but I could equal out the playing field and do just as well as anyone else.
Okay.
But I hated everyone I met at the school. And so I enlisted.
You enlisted?
I enlisted freshman year.
All right.
After one quarter, I went to the recruiting station. I'm like, hey, I want to be around pretty much like, I don't know what I said at the time, but I was like, I'm searching for like-minded individuals, and I'm in college right now, and there aren't any. And so lucky enough, I had no clue what any job in the Army was. Like, my grandfather was in the Navy, but I mean, we talked about it. I've never talked to him really, had a whole conversation with him, and he died when I was a little kid, so I didn't know anything about it other than he was in the Navy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to go in the Army. Thought about doing Marine Corps, actually, but my buddy had just joined the Marine Corps, and they screwed him over. The recruiter lied to his ass. Go figure. So I'm like, you know what? Army seems a little more trustworthy. But yeah, so I enlisted in the Army Reserves because I was like, okay, this is where you want me.
Mm-hmm.
They offered me like $10,000 signing bonus. I'm like, that's cool.
For the reserves?
Yeah, it was the surge, bro.
But that's the like
No.
the you got 10 grand for the reserves.
This is also when I found out I was colorblind. So that was a blessing in disguise. But they're like, you want to be an MP? I'm like, what's that? They're like, military police. I'm like, that sounds cool. I kind of wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
Thank God. And then I go to the MEPS and they're like, read these. What numbers do you see in these blotter charts? And I'm like, I don't see any numbers, lady. And they're like, okay, you're colorblind.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you're gonna be a great MP.
I'm colorblind.
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm colorblind? I'm 18 years old. I would have known if I was colorblind. I clearly see colors, and
Yeah.
I'm colorblind. So
What can't you see?
Oh, dude. So like pink and gray look alike to me. Super. That's the weirdest one. Purple and blues look alike. Reds and oranges. It's like anything that's not a solid color, like in the spectrum between the two.
Mm-hmm.
That just I can't tell you the difference. But like if it's like red, I can see red.
What does this look like?
Yeah, let's not get into it. I think that's red.
It's kind of like a burnt orange, white, burnt orange, blue.
See, like that blue.
Yeah.
If you told me it was green, I would have believed you.
I would never lie to you.
But so yeah, that's where like I have no idea, and they're like, all right, you can't do that. They also were actually no, I think it was first. It was they were like, hey, we have this like job with Homeland Security. There's a reserve unit that works directly with them. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. And that was also a disqualifier because it was like having to do with chemicals and stuff. And so then they ended
Good.
up. Yeah.
You're just like there.
Like probably actually
Get
that
the blue
one
one.
I shouldn't do.
The what one? All I
but-
see is gray.
So I just signed up. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And then they're like, all right,
I still can't believe you got 10 grand, dude.
well, I
the
didn't end up
reserves.
getting it. So they're like, all right, you either need to go train once a week with your reserve unit before you go to basic
Okay.
training, or you need to train with ROTC at your school.
Okay.
And my reserve unit was 2 hours away, and I didn't have a car. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go train with ROTC. And that's where I was like, I found my tribe, right? Like I found
Yeah.
people who, there was a bunch of prior service dudes. Like these dudes were just getting after it. They were so grounded, and it like really gave me people to look up to that were like a little older than me, but like had so much more life experience, and it's such a different way.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, all right, school's not that bad.
What year is this?
2010.
Okay. That's actually when I was still getting ready to go to college in 11.
So
Yeah.
that was my like sign to like push through. So I did ROTC. They're like, hey, if you
You're one of those who did. I've heard of this. Like you enlist as reserves, and then stop me anywhere. But like you enlist as reserves, and then you go to an ROTC unit, and then you basically backdoor your way into ROTC world and become an officer.
pretty much, yeah. So I did
That's
like I went to
awesome.
basic training. At basic training,
Yeah.
my drill sergeant calls me in. He's like, hey, we just got a call from some major. They're offering you a scholarship. So I got a scholarship for ROTC, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm really in this now. And they're like, the only thing is if you don't graduate or if you get kicked out of ROTC, then you're back in the reserves. And so I graduated. It was actually the best thing that could have happened because when I got that ROTC scholarship, I still had all these grants. And they took away needs-based grants, but all my other grants just went in my pocket.
Yeah.
So I was making like a few $1,000s a quarter just to go to school.
I've been trying to tell my girls this so much.
It was so silly. So yeah, all of a sudden,
you can get money to go to school if like you get enough scholarships.
well, dude, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm getting paid all this money. I was working 40 hours a week as a freshman, just to like pay bills. And then I'm like, wait, you're just gonna give me thousands of dollars to go to school?
Yeah.
And then Paul was like, you know what? Anyone who's in ROTC, we're gonna give you guys a housing allowance. And at this point, I'm living at home. I'm just driving 30 minutes to school. This was like my sophomore year. And they were like, here's an extra $7,500 to pay for housing. And I'm like, this is fucking unreal.
How quickly did all this happen from the time you enlisted in the reserves to that?
I enlisted like the second quarter of my freshman year. I went to basic training that next summer.
Yep.
So I don't know, like a few months later.
6 months, maybe? Your life changes, basically?
Maybe, right? And then all of a sudden now I'm like just making money to go to school. Like I feel like one of these like normal kids where I'm not working 40-hour weeks. I was still working like 20-hour weeks, mainly because I can't be idle. Like I always need to be doing something. So like, and it's probably, I don't know where that's based out of, but like I'm still that way. But like back then it was like, okay, classes or ROTC, PT in the morning, classes, gym, classes, work, like gym. And so I would go to the gym like 3 times a day at that point, and I was only working like 20 hours a week, and I loved it. Like it was perfect.
This is exactly what one of the things I want people to take away from this. There is a lot that comes with the military, but there is nothing more tried and true and tested and guaranteed joining the military will literally change your life.
Yeah.
No matter what.
We've talked about this, right? Like it's the easiest way if you are poor to be middle class.
Yeah. I mean, it overnight literally changed your socioeconomic status and then put you in a place to where your family is almost like there's like a guaranteed success rate that everyone will go to college and like all these other things just because you're like.
No.
Okay.
And I mean, we've talked about it all the time and I talk about it a lot, but like, there are definitely parts of the military that suck. Like I was miserable for a good amount of my career in the military, and it was partly self-induced, right? I chose to go infantry. I chose to do hard things, but also
what else is there?
I mean, it made me a better leader than if I would have won some like staff job, right? But also coming out of the military, I was so set up for so many opportunities and success, and I think people use college now. It's like, oh, you got to go to college. But really, you ask any kid going into college, 90% of them don't know what they're doing. They're like, I'm going to college because it's the next step and it's going to buy me time to figure out what I want to do with my life. And it's like, okay, so.
Which I don't blame them for.
No, but in the last 30 years, college has gone up, what, like 2,000%? You can pull up an actual statistic, but college since the 80s, 70s, 90s, it's become a business. Let's be honest. The price of college has just drastically increased. And it's like, okay, so maybe in the 90s, college could have been a middle step to figure out who you were going to be as a man, what you were going to do with your life, because most people go in undeclared and use that life experience they gain in college to figure out what they want to actually do. But now it's like, dude, how much college costs? You better go in with a plan. And it's, okay, what if you just went into the military, spent a few years there? You don't have to be infantry, right? That's the other thing. People who don't come from any kind of military exposed family, just like, oh, I'm not joining the military. I'm not killing people. It's like, bro, join S1.
I don't know if I would join the infantry now. I honestly don't know. In this era. It's something I think about lately.
Yeah.
Then it was easy. Like if you want to go shoot, move, and communicate, you have to start there. Like no matter what.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably would still do it, but I don't know. Maybe I would go on a different path from it. But I also kind of always went into something like things without any expectations. And so I think people who build expectations for what they're going into are almost always disappointed. And so I've kind of adopted a mentality where I don't expect things of other people, and I don't expect things of I guess, paths. I know what I want to get out of it. I know who I want to be and what I want to do.
Yeah.
But environment always has a say, right? It's always going to dictate, and then it comes down to how you react. And it's the same with people, right? Like if you're someone who has high expectations of people, or you expect people to reciprocate the way you treat them, you're probably always going to be disappointed. But if you do things just because that is how you want to be, who you want to be, and how you want to treat people with absolutely no expectation of reciprocation, you're going to be a lot happier. And so I think that's the other thing with the military is if you're going in expecting to do something and do this because of some recruiting video or because of what your buddy experienced, well, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Well, and you just have to understand too, when it comes to military, it's so big, especially the Army. The Army's scary. I think at its peak, it was like 1 million.
Yeah.
When the Marine Corps, its peak was like just under 300. So, and like it's now, whatever that is now, it's the same scale, I would imagine. Yeah. But like I remember there were guys who were in infantry units that never deployed for 4 years, which endlessly upset me and also endlessly fascinated me because I feel like everyone should have been involved. Like, dude, that was my main thing. Finding out people like, what do you mean? I was like, what did you do? Like, tell me.
I remember being in, you'd see like an E7 or E8 with no deployment patch, and you're like, oh, clearly they're just not wearing it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're the one who didn't get one.
Yeah.
Hiding out at recruiting. And
that is the amount of people that spend a career helping to make mission, recruiting, dodging the longest war ever. I got no respect for that if I'm just going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Because like that's the good and bad of it is everyone has a role and that's fine, but I think everyone should start with the main mission. And the main mission at that time was the global war on terror.
Well, I was going to say, I think nowadays it's a lot more understandable, right? Now it's majority don't have deployment patches. But back then it was like dudes were getting stop lost and dudes were getting...
That's what I'm saying.
You'd get back to your unit, you go to the next unit, your next unit's deploying. Like, it was a very nice shuffling game the Army and I'm sure Marine Corps were doing.
Dude, I had seniors on my first tour. They got stop lost. They're like, you guys can leave or you can get paid more. And like, they both stayed. I don't know what I would have done. I'd like to think I would have stayed or whatever, but like in that moment when the decision's placed in front of you, who cares if you get, like 3 times your deployment pay if you don't go home?
Yeah.
And then what? You were there for no reason. Meanwhile, there's dudes hiding out in recruiting or other places where they should be there in the fight. Like that's what honestly like builds those gradual resentments between the ranks that I think we just didn't really understand it. Right.
Absolutely.
Especially when you go to places like Kandahar and Airfield and you would see like a Tim Hortons, a TGI Fridays, all those crazy things there. But, and you're like, I don't have that experience. I gotta shoot, move, and communicate, man. It's just not it. But yeah, you're in college.
Oh, yeah. So
Officer Bartell.
I graduated college and 2 weeks later I was at Fort Benning and
it's not called that anymore.
I was at Fort Moore.
Is that what it's called now?
It's called Fort Moore, but when I was there, it was Fort Benning.
Okay.
And did infantry officer school and went through that, and that was like one of the most miserable times of my life. Like me and my buddy still talk about. He went through a couple years before me, and just how depressing it is. It's just like you're in the field for 5 days, you come out for the weekend, you stuff your face with shitty food, and you go right back to the field for I think like 17 weeks straight. And they just try and break you off, and I was in really good shape at that time. And even
you've
then,
fallen off lately, dude.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Shut up. What did you look like then? Did your veins have veins?
I was probably like 180 with like 2% body fat.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was hot.
Why were you moving like that in like IOC?
Oh man.
You needed a little more body fat's what you needed.
Well, no, I mean we'd run 5 miles every week. But that's also where I tore my meniscus, and that led to kind of like my running downfall. But back then I was like a pretty stud runner. I mean, I remember junior, senior year of college, and we like were training for Baton Death March, and I was like, I don't need to train for this. Trust me, I did need to train for it.
How long is that?
It's a marathon. It's 26.2. But it's through the New Mexico desert, and so like there's like 4 miles straight of just sand. And
for real?
Yeah.
So that's like a real thing. You'll go recreate that?
Mm-hmm. You should do it. It's at like Sands Missile Base or something.
No.
It's a pretty cool experience, but I also like tried to run the whole thing with a 40-something pound ruck on. It was a cool experience, but I almost died in the desert. But yeah, so like I was just like super into. I was like a hybrid athlete, they call it nowadays. And I'm like, I want to lift heavy things and I want to run. it's the new version of pretty much CrossFit, right? So you can run far, long distances, but you can lift heavy.
Is that possible to maintain long term?
It's like what like Nick Bear says. His big thing is like hybrid athlete. So he'll go run a marathon and then he'll go try and deadlift 500 pounds. It's definitely possible to maintain. As you get into older age, there's probably some help that we'll probably end up talking about here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept from an athletic standpoint because it's two very conflicting muscles working against each other in your body, and then also trying to teach them to work in harmony. Your body likes homeostasis, and so if your body's like, okay, we run a lot, then your body's going to adapt to run a lot. But in a very different sense, if your body's like, okay, we lift heavy things, same thing. Your body wants to adapt to that, and so now you're trying to adapt to both. But so I was like that as a young 20-something-year-old. I was like, I can do it all, and I couldn't. Like, I tore my knee. But yeah, so then I did that whole Army thing, and I don't know. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, I mean, so you chose infantry, right?
I did.
And then you went up to Fort Campbell?
Yeah. I chose infantry. I chose 101st. I was like, okay, what's the most like legendary unit in the Army? And at the time, I was very afraid of heights. I did my 5 airborne jumps, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this a lot. So I was like 101st. Then I was like, sliding down a rope sounds a lot safer for me than jumping out of a plane.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I did 4 years with the 101st, did the one deployment to Afghanistan. I was lucky enough. I got to the 101st without a Ranger tab, which at that time was like unheard of. And they're like, oh, have fun sitting in the shop for the rest of your career. And I had really good NCOs. I was lucky. So the unit was deploying already. They were like 2 months out from deployment. So they put me on a rear detachment company. I ran the rear detachment company. I got my EIB. I kind of proved myself in the sense, expert infantry badge.
Okay.
Where they're like, all right, let's bring him forward and give him a platoon. And so I got to pick up a platoon in combat, got to lead troops in combat, and like check that off the list. Like if you go infantry and it's like, oh, I'm not gonna actually be a leader. And I know plenty of great dudes who just their timeline didn't line up, where it's like they deployed but they sat on staff, right? That's the epitome of being an officer. It's like, I'm not going to deploy to sit in an office all day. And so I was really lucky in the sense I got to deploy and actually lead dudes.
Leading troops in combat is one of the greatest honors and privileges of ever.
Absolutely.
Like, it's hard to even relate to anyone who hasn't done it in the military. Especially because I went from being just a regular rifleman to, an A gunner to a team leader to a squad leader. And just that jump from team to squad, you go from giving your opinion to making a decision, and then so much same thing, you go from getting opinions to making decisions, or you go from giving opinions to making decisions. It's like, okay, everyone says go right, but you say go left. You're the one who carries that burden of responsibility of leadership. And there's nothing that's been as rewarding. I don't think anything else will ever be, because you're so meshed and you're so honed together. And
I mean, you're living, breathing, eating, shitting with these dudes for months on end.
Yeah.
And depending on your living situation, legit next to them.
Yeah.
And so I think that was something I still to this day talk to most of those guys and really consider myself lucky that the chips fell how they did. I proved myself in the right sense and was given that opportunity, because like I said, in the Army, it's very different. If you're a lieutenant in the infantry and you don't have a Ranger tab, it's go get your Ranger tab before you.
It's that big of a deal?
At the 101st and 82nd, the premier units, yeah. Because everyone goes there with it. But I tore my meniscus at the very last mission of our training. And so all my buddies went to Ranger school while I sat around and did XO staff duty and stuff like that. And then Benning was like, all right, we have too many LTs here, and we don't care if you're hurt. Go to your unit, and they'll send you back to Ranger school whenever they get slots and time. And so I just showed up. I'm broken and freaking tabless. And it was not a great experience. But luckily, there was also some really good other lieutenants there who were like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. Just prove yourself. You'll go back to Ranger School. You'll prove yourself there or whatever. And it just worked out.
Ranger School is so interesting to me because the Marine Corps doesn't really have an equivalent to it.
It's such a...
Maybe if it was bigger, it would develop some type of course like that.
I mean, they send Marines.
Yeah, there's like one from every unit that gets sent or whatever. But like, I remember even hearing about guys going, and I could not have been more uninterested in it. But like,
well, that's how I felt after deployment. So after deployment, they're like,
that's the thing.
You want to go to Ranger School? And I'm like, bro, I've been doing this. I've been a platoon leader for like, at that point, I was a platoon leader for 18 months when I finally left my platoon. I'm like, I've kind of done all of it already.
Yeah.
Like I was one of the top LTs in the entire battalion. And I was like grungy in the sense of like I could give a fuck what people thought.
Yeah, you're smoking now. Now you're smoking.
I was at that level, right? I was like,
what? No, I'm not doing
telling
that.
like majors to fuck off. And so I was like, no, man, I don't think that's in my my glide path right now.
Yeah. That's a no for me, dog. Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm getting out actually.
Yeah. I love that you even have the officer lingo too. You're like, it's not on my glide path.
Yeah.
Mwah. I like that. Chef's kiss, baby.
But I was always like, I didn't necessarily fit the officer mold. And
you do in my Marine Corps time. They're all kind of like you, is what I'll say.
I was the only officer at that time that had tattoos.
Not tattoos so much. What I see, I mean, that was a very strict thing in the Marine Corps. They just recently changed it, apparently. But they all of my lieutenants were all like jocks, meatheads.
Oh,
this one dude used to play football. I can't remember where. I want to say it's like Kansas or something like that. But he was famous for throwing medicine balls and letting them fall on his face as part of his workout. I think he was just trying to peacock and establish dominance as the XO. He like played football in Nebraska or something. The other lieutenant, was like a football player for North Carolina State. Like they were all like, like they were all monsters. And so I think it's because the Marine Corps especially is so small and it's very cultivated. Like they're pushing that forward. The last one wrestled at George Mason. Like they're all dudes.
Jocks,
They're all dudes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is what I'll say.
That's how our battalion culture was at the time. It was very much a lot of West Point football, and like the battalion commander at the time picked his old football buddies to come in and be under him, and so it was like
nice. Yeah.
And right before him, it was like Colonel Steele, who's like a legendary figure in the 101st. He used to host just brawls.
For real?
Yeah, like legit. They would go to like part of like PT would be like you'd bring the companies to the field, and it would be like this company fight that company, and they would just brawl.
Shut the fuck up,
dude. The Colonel Steele days, like the stories I've heard from them, were just insane.
What year was this?
Oh, I want to say early 2000s.
Dude, I'll go back in a heartbeat.
Dude,
if that happens. If we could meet in the middle of a field like Braveheart, dude.
It was like you talk about like man rules. Like it was like fucking settle it.
Fuck yes,
he was a hardcore dude.
We had a little skirmish with tanks once. 1-6 when I was a boot. 1-6 had barracks, and they were like here, and they were like bottom and left, and tanks was like to the right and top. We eventually took that one too, but we split it, and we'd always walk into the thing and be like, "Fuck tanks!" Like, and then finally one dude like came out to like the quad, which is where the smoke pit was. He's like, "Fuck 1-6," and then the barracks just like
erupted,
just unloaded, and they unloaded, and like the duties had to come out and separate all of us. I don't know how MPs didn't get called, but it was just like a brawl.
Yeah, well, that's dude. Those stories from that time, they were like, yeah, MPs weren't allowed to come inside the Torrid area, like Rakisans with the Tories. It was like a no MP zone.
I've never heard of like a battalion commander though leading the. That's even cooler. Like we were all like, as soon as you're like there, you're like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble. Like,
yeah, I think he was brigade commander at the time.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was cool, dude. I was like, man, I was a little bit late to this party.
Yeah,
but that was like the old army. Like there was no social media really floating around at the time, so you weren't worried about, oh, is this gonna get out? Am I gonna get relief for cause? No, it was like,
am I gonna be on U.S. Army? We're
deploying every other year.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Like I remember I've spent so much time at JRTC, it's disgusting.
Really?
Yeah, we'd deploy, we'd come back, we'd go to JRTC, we'd come home for a couple months, and then it's like, oh, you're going back to JRTC, and it's like, why are we doing JRTC again?
Yeah.
And it's because it's a OER bullet for the battalion or brigade commander. I don't know who suggested it this time.
Cool.
So we'd go to JRTC again, but every time you do anything like that, there's a train up for it. And so you're like in the field months before you go to JRTC for a month. And then you come back, you get like a month of relative chill. And then it's like, okay, now we're pre-deployment or whatever. And so it's like the op tempo was like insane.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the main reasons I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see my family. Like, we didn't have kids purposely in the Army because I'm like, I'll never get to see my kid. And I still have friends from those days who don't see their kids the way like you and I talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're good dads. They just deployed, TDY, JRTC, deployed. Like,
being in the military and having a family is the most selfish and selfless things anyone can do. This is just my opinion, because it is selfish in the sense of that your entire family has to react to the decisions you make. But it is truly selfless of you and everyone else involved to commit to a life of service. But nothing is free. And, our first child was a beautiful, wonderful surprise. And then our second daughter, we wanted them to be close in age, much like your boys are. And so, when we were in Marja, and then I was like looking at her through like not FaceTime, what was it called? Skype. I was just like, I don't ever want to do this again. I can't do this for like the rest of forever, And so, that's not even counting like if I live, if I make it, right? Or if something bad doesn't happen, or like, I have zero regrets on it, zero regrets. And so my heart and my love goes out to anybody who's committed to that. It's hard.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't imagine, dude. I couldn't imagine, like, especially your story, which I'm sure most of them know, but it's like not being able to see your baby girl.
Yeah.
It was most of the first year of her life, like
7 months for both of them.
And then like the perspective of being in the military and deploying is fucking cool. Like, let's be real. It's cool to be out there with your boys.
Yeah.
Doing shit, but also in the back of your head when you're like, oh my God, like it's not just my shit on the line anymore. Like, that has to change things drastically.
Yeah. My first daughter was born, and then we were here in Nashville. It was back when they used to call it Baptist, Baby Factory Baptist. Now it's whatever, Midtown, blah, blah, blah. And I was here for 2 days, and my company had already left, and so I had to wait for like a week in North Carolina, but I left here, and I was just like, oh, dude, this sucks. And so then we come back, and like, you're not going anywhere. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's try for our second child, and we did successfully. And then finding out at the last minute we're going to Marja, I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing? Because like I feel as if I had made the decision to stay. I know I would have, my career would have been great, whatever, all those different things, but like it would have been in complete juxtaposition. It would have been in a complete juxtaposition over the thing that I wanted to do more than anything else. Is I just really wanted to be a father. Yeah. I really wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be there for them and show up for them and to make them feel safe and secure and strong and let them to find out who they are their whole lives and just know that no matter what, I'm going to be there. They might not always see me. They might not be aware of it, but until the good Lord calls me home, I'm right there for them. And just everything in opposite of what you and I had, because like I wanted them to have every opportunity possible to be successful. And I feel like committing to a life of military service wasn't going to make that easy for anyone.
No.
Especially the career I'd chosen, the pace, the tempo. Like there was, we move every 3 years and I'm a recruiter, or we move after that and then we go to like wherever. Like it's just hard. There's no other way around it. And people that do it, it's beautiful, but it is taxing on everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love making fun of each other in the military. We love making fun of mil spouses to a degree too, right? Like, yeah. But let's be very honest. Like, that is such a unthanked job.
Yeah,
in many ways, and especially with kids, like freaking, that's tough.
It's so tough, and like military spouses get such a bad rap because like, you know, my wife and your wife, they're both incredible people, and then there's also girls doing contract marriages, girls and guys doing contract marriages, but they're all in the same category. So it's, you know, the reputation of the population is not great.
There's levels to it.
There's levels to this game, dude. I used to say if they have a stage name, you know, don't give her your last name. Now I would say, like,
they have an OnlyFans.
Yeah, if they have an OnlyFans, don't give her your last name. So
Yeah,
it's just those things. I don't know. It's. I'm just now coming to look at a lot of those things now because my, you know, getting close to anniversaries and stuff coming around. So every year, you know, the holidays happen, and then I look up and I'm like, cool, anniversaries from the war. I'll be fine. It's tough, but yeah, I'm pushing forward through it, just like you pushed through your career, and you're like, hey, there's something to the fitness. So I like fitness.
So I got out, right, or I was getting out, and this is one of the things I say to people who are planning on getting out, because every now and then you get the DM or whatever, like, I'm thinking about getting out, I want to do this or that, like, what should I do? And it's like, well, first of all, how far out are you from ETS, or what do you guys call it?
EAS.
EAS. It's like,
Better.
oh, like if the answer is a month, it's like, bro, you waited too long. And if the answer is a year, it's like, okay, you're right on time.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, all right, I'm going to give myself a year to figure out what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
And I was planning on going back to grad school.
What did you want to do?
So I got my undergrad in psychology, and I was going to say, okay, I'm going to go back to grad school, and I'm trying to get like my PhD in psychology and maybe get into clinical side.
I literally want to do that. That's my undergrad is in.
So
But
I thought it'd be cool, right?
Yeah, they didn't have a postgraduate program at Lipscomb yet at that time. They might now. So that's why I got an MBA. But I was like, I want to do that. The exact same thing.
Well, I spent about 1 hour studying for the GRE, and I was like, this is not for me. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put that on hold. And I really like fitness. At the time, I think I was a few months into my fitness Instagram, which I don't know if I ever told you. So I started that because of my soldiers. And so as a senior LT,
they're like, sir, you know, you'd look great with your shirt off.
yeah, pretty much. Now, as a senior LT, I would take a lot of my privates to the gym. And it's like, all right, for PT, I get it. We have to run. We have to do body weight shit. But you think about every private coming into the military, they're $120 soaking wet, and all they want to do is get big like their NCO or their senior. And so I was like, come to the gym with me. I'll teach you basic movement techniques. I'll teach you At the time, I was doing a lot of bodybuilding stuff because that's what I knew. And I just like studied like Arnold's Blueprint and all stuff like that. And I'm like, I'll take you to the gym and I'll teach you.
It's honestly the best.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'll teach you basics. And so I would take 2 at a time, right? But then like it was almost like scheduled. It's like, okay, I can't take all of you. And they're like, well, write it down. I'm like, you want me to like post a note? Like, so I started Snapchatting.
I'm a lieutenant.
I started Snapchatting them the workout, the exercise or whatever, because I had Snapchat and I had Facebook at the time. And like Facebook was not anything remotely social at the time. It was like how you talk to family and friends.
Yeah.
And so I would Snapchat it to them, and they're like, dude, can you just get an Instagram? I'm like, dude, my wife has an Instagram. I don't think that's for me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Instagram's for girls. And I was so clueless about what was actually happening on Instagram. I wish I would have gone on sooner because I would have been a part of that big surge.
Yeah.
But so I got Instagram. I started posting workouts for them on my Instagram. I would just post the videos. It was so freaking crappy. But that's like, they kind of showed me how to do it. And then random other soldiers started following me. And then like other military people would follow me. And then just kind of fitness in general were following me. And that's how I started my Instagram.
Just literally just a love for fitness.
Yeah. And just trying to like help soldiers learn how to at least understand basic kind of like muscle building.
So you give them like a performance, like a not performance plan, like a workout plan. You'd be like, hey, do this, this, and this. And
it was almost like a workout of the day thing. I'd be like, here's my workout of the day. And then I would post like different kind of things. If you're trying to grow your triceps, like do these 3 tricep movements, stuff like that. I got into nutrition a bit, actually, would help them with like their nutrition plans, and just stuff like that. And so like, that was like what I was doing at the time just for fun. But I'm like, I understand that that trainer at Anytime Fitness is making $10 an hour. I'm not trying to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of the military as an officer to go make minimum wage as a trainer. So that's why I was like, I'm going to go back to grad school, but I wonder if I can do training on the side. And that's when I started looking up training certificates and also like training certificate scholarships. I didn't know about any of it at the time. And that's when I found FitOps.
Okay.
And so FitOps was like 2 months old. It was this brand new nonprofit, and they're like, hey, we're going to teach veterans how to get certified in personal training, and we'll help them find jobs. I'm like, cool, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I applied to it. And at the time, the like executive director shot me an email like a week later, and he's like, hey, looked over your resume and everything you got going on. That's really cool. You got a lot of operational experience and stuff. I would love for you to come out to our camp we're about to host. It's like I think it was their first or second camp. And just let us know what you think and if we can fix anything. And I'm like, I'm applying for this.
All right.
And like, that's the stage they were in though. Like they were brand new, didn't know what the hell they were doing. And so I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, yeah, you can definitely go through it and get certified. We just are more interested in maybe bringing you on as staff. And so I went out to the camp and
Nice.
yeah, I spent a weekend. I was still in the Army. So I spent a weekend at their camp and just rewrote their entire like operational plan. And like gave that to them. And then they're like, actually, we want to keep you consulting. And so I was just consulting for free. I would go out to these camps whenever I could like get a weekend free from the Army. I didn't tell the Army what I was doing. I had a pretty good relationship with, at the time I was in the 3 shop, so I had a pretty good relationship with the S3. He was on his way out, so he's like, do whatever the fuck you want. He was a bro.
That's legit.
And so like, I remember one time it was like a Wednesday and I was down in Texas running a camp.
Nice.
And he calls me and he's like, hey, where the fuck are you? And I'm like, you want the truth? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm in Texas right now, leading one of these fitness camps for veterans. What the fuck, dude? I'm like, I could be back Monday. He's like, bro, you can't be doing this. I'm like, sorry, man. I'm trying to set myself up from the outside. Like,
Yeah.
And so
I'll bring you protein. How's that sound?
well, and to be very fair, like I was doing his job for him most days. And so they were deployed. And when they deployed, the Army changed over their entire planning system to this new system. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm the rear D, like acting S3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned the system. And so he came back and had no clue how to do any of these reports or any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing it for him. And so he kind of needed me.
Pretty good trade.
I know. So I was like, I got a little leverage here. I think I can, I know what we talked about. I was kind of like already, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I got a little leverage. I'm going to take care of you. You take care of me. And so I just spent like 6 months doing all these camps, like redoing them, started executing, organizing. I was running the camps while I was in the Army. And so as soon as I got out of the Army, it was actually a month before I got out of the Army, they brought me on full time. And so I was full-time employee with them. I got a couple extra months of Army pay. It was really nice, couple months. We were already living in Nashville. Breck was working at Vanderbilt. And so we were living high at that time. But about
Making like 40 grand a year or something. Isn't it weird? Like you look back on it, you're like, oh, dude, those beautiful moments of like,
well, and we just sold our house in Clarksville and made a little money off of that.
dude,
so.
yeah. Like it just feels
was
good,
great,
man.
yeah.
When you grind through it for so long, and especially when you take the jump when you leave, it's just like, because the military, as soon as you're like, I'm not doing this anymore, they're like, good, we hate you. No one ever liked you. Bye.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay.
Pretty much, right? They're like, all right, we don't care. Let's go put our energy somewhere else. And rightfully so. But I approached it in the same way because, I wasn't wet behind the ears. I knew exactly how that worked. I'm like, I'm going to take care of me. And so I spent that year taking care of me. I still did what I had to do for the Army, and I still took care of the people who were taking care of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, dude, I'm going to ETS, and you're not going to do anything for me. So I'm going to make sure that while I'm getting paid and I have this safety net, I'm setting myself up for my next chapter. And so that's what I did. And then I got out of the Army and I immediately took over the FitOps. I was the executive director of the nonprofit, ran it for a few years. The FitOps was actually under a supplement brand called Performix. And so at the time they're like, hey, we're opening up this really nice gym in New York City. We'd love for you to come run it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, is this an option? And they're like, well, we would really like for you to come run it. And I'm like, okay. And so their issue was they opened up this gym. It was in the heart of Manhattan. It was the nicest gym in New York at the time, pretty much. They brought in the best trainers. But all these trainers that they brought in were the best. Some of the best in the city, some just national.
Yeah.
But they all built that. They spent years, decades building that brand, their own brand, as I'm this fitness trainer. And then they brought them into one gym and they were like, hey, you guys now all work for us. And they're like, fuck, I do.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't. I didn't build my brand freaking for 10 years in New York City trying to acquire these amazing celebrity clients for you to be like, hey, now they're ours. And so they're like, look, we have the best space. We have the best trainers. We need someone to tie it all together and make them a team. And so I'm running the nonprofit on one end, and then they're like, we need you to move to New York. So my wife was 7 months pregnant with our child, and we up and moved from Nashville to New York City.
And that's when you began your takeover of the fitness world, which we'll get back into right after this break. Thanks.
Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. If you want to continue to hear more stories like this and to help us grow the podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to also drop a rating and review. Every bit helps. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the episode.
And we're back here with my good friend Erik Bartell, and be sure to follow him everywhere on social media platforms, Real Erik Bartell, and also Echelon, the pre-workout in a can. If you want to ride the lightning, if you want to look God in the eye, if you want to feel alive, you take an Esche, you crack it open, and then you know what you're made of. To find out more, go to echelon.com using promo code. Zach sent me there. You will save 4,000%. Just kidding. Check it out. It's on bases everywhere. If you want to activate yourself in the gym, best pre-workout in the world, Echelon. Good?
Yeah, I'm going to use that later.
We're cutting it. So, sorry, that was just to make you feel comfortable. No, so you're up there, you're in New York.
Yeah.
In New York City.
Song played as I got off the plane.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I drove.
Yeah. You're like
yeah.
you're like there, and the first thing you find out is probably what I found out when I went to New York. It sucks.
Yeah. So me and my 7-month pregnant wife get there, and we found a place to live, thankfully. I don't know if you know this. The rent is expensive. We got a nice little 1.5 bedroom apartment. Great deal. I think we paid $3,600 a month for it. It was about 800 square feet.
Wow. What a magical place.
I know, right? And it was beautiful. I mean, it was great, right? And so I was working pretty much every day at this gym from 5 a.m. to like 7, 8 p.m. and just grinding. And so I was doing that day in and day out, building culture more than anything. Kind of.
Do you want to name the gym?
It was called Performance House, yeah.
Okay.
It was a great experience. Like, again, like the military, the nonprofit, the gym, I would never take back any of these decisions I made. And I think partly because of growing up and, like I told you earlier, like kind of with my mom, it's like, okay, it'll always work out. And so I've always been inclined to just take that leap, right? I do the leap of faith. And if there's an opportunity that might take you a little bit higher, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
And so I did that. I did that with the Army. I did that with Fit Ops, and I did that with this. I'm like, it's an opportunity and it could better me. And thankfully my wife is always down for my crazy ideas. So ran this gym. We had amazing trainers, and it was all just like, how do we build a team here? How do we inspire them to work from each other and not think that they're all just trying to steal each other's techniques and secrets?
Are there secrets in the fitness world?
Absolutely. I don't know if they're secrets as much as people become specialized in fitness, and you see it like there's always that person who's good at doing something. Like in New York, it's very much models, right? There's the people that are really well or do really well at training models is a big thing. Because if you can get one model in the right shape for whatever show she's doing, the agency will send you more. And then you become that person who trains all of this agency's models. And so I knew quite a few trainers we had became those trainers where I know how to get a model super lean for this show or whatever. And
what's the secret? Give us some fitness secrets here.
I don't think it's much of a secret. I mean, like you said earlier, right? You want to get leaner, you do training, and you
Train more,
and you
eat
just
less,
fix your
yeah.
diet.
Yeah.
I think it's people. I think you have to understand, one, how to get someone to do what you want, and it's, especially if it's something they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And two, everyone's body is slightly different, and so it's more so understanding how people's bodies adapt, when who's adapting slower, who's adapting more, how do you scale this time frame, and then how do you work miracles and stuff when it's like there's no time frame. But that's what it was all about in their level. More so, it's like trainers they work very hard. It's like anything, you work really hard to acquire new clients.
Yeah.
You want to retain them. And so if someone else starts training your client, that's threatening, because if your client all of a sudden likes them better, or if they're more fun, it doesn't matter if they're getting the same results. If your client's like, oh, I like training with them, I'm going to go train with them 3 days a week.
Mhm.
Well, you're losing money. And so as an independent trainer coming out of wherever you're training and going to a gym where it's like all of a sudden, hey, we're a team, it's threatening to your business and it's threatening to your livelihood. And we just talked about rent in New York.
Yeah.
And so it was more so like, how do we disarm and make them feel more comfortable doing stuff like this? And so we did stuff like team days where we would close down the gym and we would do education. And it was like, I know you guys are some of the best trainers in the city, if not the country or world. I don't care. We're going to have one of you get up here and teach your secrets. And so they would get up in front of all their other team members or competitors, depending on how they looked at them, and they would tell them exactly what they do and how they do this with clients or how they do that, and share that tool. And everyone did it. And then we would bring out an outsider who was an expert in something specific that they probably looked up to, whether they were on a sports team or whatever, and they would teach them something else.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, now we're all in this together. How can we make everything better? And so that started working out, and everyone started working together, and it was actually a beautiful thing. And it was much like the military. Everyone came from different places. Everyone came with different ideologies and this and that. But at the end of the day, we all kind of have one common goal of universal success here. And so I did that, and then moonlighted running the nonprofit. And so we were still fundraising for the nonprofit, trying to get stuff up. At the time when Performix had built this gym, the whole idea was it would be a marketing tool.
Yeah.
We're gonna
For their supplements.
for the supplements, we're gonna
Smart.
make this a lifestyle, and we're gonna use this gym. And it was a content house training facility, and we're gonna use this to embody it. But we know we're gonna lose money on it. And then there was a lot of stuff that went down behind the scenes where all of a sudden they're like, hey, this needs to make money. And then it was a very different game. And so they're like, all right, you need to figure all that out. And so there was a lot of shifts. It was a hectic time. It was extremely stressful. It was probably the most stressful time outside of my military career.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned so much on the fly that it was like, okay, I can do anything. And so I was like, I spent a year doing that. It was December of 2019. I'm like, I'm getting out of New York. I'm going back to Nashville. I can't live here anymore.
Yeah.
I was working
Just in time.
Yeah. I was working crazy hours, like, and it was almost like the military. Like, the reason I got out of the military before having a kid was because I wanted to actually see my kid.
Yeah.
And I didn't see my son for the first 8 months of his life. I would leave before he'd wake up, and I'd be home after he was going to sleep.
Yeah. Like, what's
I'm
the
like,
point?
why am I doing this?
There's no point.
And so
There's no point to that. And it's just not worth it.
yeah. And so we left, and we came back to Nashville. And the day I started telling people, I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to leave. I'm going to start consulting. I had 3 job offers.
Good.
And so I was like, okay, I'm worth more than I credit myself. And so at that time, I also started building up a fitness brand of my own. And
Mm-hmm.
I had been published in Men's Health and different magazines. And like we talked about, like I was also training specific like people. And so it was like, okay, like I need to invest in myself a little bit and kind of just go all out here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which is important to do that, right? It's important to take that step and believe in yourself, because it in anything, I think we all get a little too safe, and I always think of the expression golden handcuffs, that you don't ever know they're there until sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I'm not happy. I don't like this. This isn't fun. You know?
Well, and also I think in the military, like we're taught to put ourselves on the back burner, especially when to become a leader. You put yourself on the back burner and you put everyone else first. And it's like, okay, you can do that to a degree, but in the civilian world,
Yeah.
that becomes harmful to your own growth. And when I say growth, I very much mean moving up in whatever ladder it is you're on, making more money, and also just not being taken advantage of. And I think we get out of the military, or even in the military, when we start doing our own businesses, and we undervalue ourselves dramatically. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn that I still have to learn sometimes, is like, no, like if you're offering a service, or if you're doing something that no one else can do, you need to demand the value of what you need, and you also need to demand at least to be taken care of the way that you would expect to take care of someone else.
The most common thing said in the military that sticks with people too long, in my opinion, is he's just doing his job. She's just doing her job. And I think that sticks with you outside of it. You're like, yeah, I was just doing my job. And it's because
The Nazis said too.
they did actually. And that's the problem, is that you think that you're just doing your job. It's not. Damn it, Eric, I have to cut that because I can't. I was trying to say is like you devalue what it is you're doing and whatever, but I will literally cut this part, cut it all out. Actually, no, we're gonna start over. That was funny. One of the things I feel like sticks with people the most when they get out of the military is this idea of I'm just doing my job, and so that puts you in a place where you downplay, don't promote. I don't know what the right term is, but like you just kind of accept everything you're doing as normal, and less of like, am I going above and beyond? Am I, putting myself in a position to succeed? Am I getting like all the right looks or the opportunities? A lot of it, this is something they don't ever talk about really. It's kind of what I hated my postgraduate career, was that most of what you're doing to get that next job is looking for a job. Like someone told me, if you're not switching companies every 2 years, you're not going to make the money you want. And I was like, it's true, because most companies have in their bylaws, if you go from janitor to CEO, you can only make a max of 10% of your salary or something like that. I don't know why. It's dumb. Doesn't make sense to me. But if you leave as a janitor and you come back as a CEO, you'll get real money. These were HR people that told me that.
Yeah.
And so you're like in, groups and doing all these things to like meet with people, and, your job is looking for another job. And it was just it was so exhausting. Like, and I don't think people realize that.
It's such a big thing, especially when you get like the corporate side of the business world. Is
nightmare stuff.
You're like, oh, this is absolutely opposite of what I've been taught from all my military experience of loyalty and stuff. Is like, and even like the old, like, I think our parents' generation more so is like, oh, you're going to work a job, you're going to retire after 20, 30 years.
Ask everyone who
get taken care, get a pension.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's not really a thing anymore. And especially once you get into like that white collar level, like it's like it's the same as the military. Like if you're not looking out for yourself, like you can't expect your company to look out for you in many ways. They're going to look out for you in a professional manner, but also they're going to look out for their bottom line.
Yeah. Sears and Roebuck proved that when like none of them got their pension after it shut down, because they believed in that. And personally, just because of my upbringing and everything, if a company, a non-human organism who is only beholden to shareholders, and unless you own shares, it has no obligation to you, they really don't have to give you the retirement package they planned to give you, or that you paid into, or they're supposed to match. They don't have to do any of that.
Shit changes.
That's reality. They don't have to do any of that. But like, there's the generations prior to us, I don't know if they were gullible, or maybe they were just they had been burned. I mean, in
a different time.
I think people had more loyalty to each other, and more ultimately, like, their word had a higher value than it does now. But
I mean, think about the 90s though. Like, you went from like really coming out of Vietnam into like just decades of stability.
Yeah. Well, and but like in our lifetime,
stability and growth. That's all America knew.
Yeah.
Up until
we used to be a proper country. No, when I think about my lifetime, me and you have seen so many institutions fall that like, and I don't know what's going to happen next. And I know that's what Gen Z kids like try to latch onto. That's not true. They haven't seen institutions fall. Like they're like the housing crisis. They weren't alive then, most of them. Like, I don't want to hear their opinions on anything for the most part. I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to like speak in public discourse until you've traveled to other countries outside of the U.S. That is a real truth I have.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't. You'd be like, America sucks. Blah blah blah. Okay, go anywhere else. Come back.
What is that, like Mark Twain?
I don't know. It's Zach Twain. We're going with that.
Zach Twain.
Well, it's just, I did mission trips with churches and stuff. And like, I've seen countries not just in the military. And I can tell you, we are by no means perfect, but we're trying a lot harder than other places. A lot harder than there's a reason people are coming in droves to this country.
Yeah.
They're not doing that everywhere else. Like that is a hard fact. You can drink the toilet water. That's what I think about a lot. I think about that a lot. Like our toilet, the water that flushes the toilets in this country is drinkable.
It's cleaner than most water in other countries.
Most countries, they can't get clean water. You could, if times are tough, you could take a ladle, you could figure it out. Like, go from the back of the bowl, not the top, is the main thing. But there's nothing that happens in the back of the bowl. But
where is this going?
This episode was sponsored by Plumber.com. No, well, it's just, I don't. In the era where we all have cell phones and stuff, the downfall of it is everyone is given equal credibility without equal experience, right?
Yeah.
So, like, when I see, people in Gen Z doing politics, my first thought is that's the last thing any normal person who wasn't funded would be doing online, right? Me and my friends aren't talking about legislation in our 20s. You know what we were talking about? Anything else.
Yeah.
Anything else.
Oh, my God.
Right? It's a psyop. So, what? But, like, we have to get back to a place where I do think everyone should be able to have an opinion, but we need to, like, weight it. Be like, okay, this is so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think being a military makes me an expert at things, but I think having experiences on a global scale does make me more informed and you more informed than most every other person, right?
It's the beautiful and destructive nature of social media is it gives everyone a soapbox, and depending on how squeaky you are, it'll also drive you a following that makes you seem like you are an expert at something.
Boy, isn't that the truth? A lot of bot followers out there now more than ever. Look at the views, check the ratios. That's how you know quality of comments. But in the era where fitness influencing has arguably never been bigger,
Died? Oh.
It hasn't died. I think it's never been bigger. It's peaking. It's peaking, in my opinion.
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think fitness influencing peaked in like 2018, maybe.
Let me tell you why I don't think it's peaked yet. Joey Swole and Goob. Okay.
Neither of them are fitness influencers.
Hang on. Let me explain.
Okay.
Your Honor, if you may I approach the bench. Here's why I think it's peaking. Because for as long as I can remember, I would look at fitness influencers, and I distinctly was aware that they were all lying for the most part.
Okay.
Most of them are lying, right? Because, hundreds of thousands of followers overnight.
I get where you're going with this. Okay, I got you.
Right? So, and their comments are like, it's always Indian guys typing Bobs or whatever country they come from. And you're like, that doesn't seem accurate. And then you also look at their photos and stuff. You're like, that seems artificial. And so Joey is attacking gym culture, which I appreciate. It deserves to be attacked. It deserves to be reined in. I'm not against anyone filming or doing stuff, and I get it. It's a Sam Sulek effect. Like, you just want to do that. But, like, what people don't understand about what he's doing is his main goal is to work out and go to school. That is it. He makes videos as a way to work out and go to school.
Yeah.
And so Joey Swole's reign of gym culture is incredible. I mean, just all the videos he has are so great. But Goob, shout out Goob. He's the hero we need. He's the hero we need. He goes out of his way in a way that's honestly not negative. The thing that's negative is the people's actions he's talking about.
I'm utterly impressed with his attention to detail. He would have made a great soldier.
Yeah.
His attention to detail, he's like...
He also loves knives.
You see that shadow?
Yeah.
Look at the shadow now.
Yeah.
I'm like...
Almost all fitness influencers are cooking their photos. It's sad.
Well, and so
this is leading into a question. Do you fear the long-term ramifications of that, because I feel that those two guys might actually save gym culture in the sense of they're going to rein it back in, because they're making a living off the stupidity of these kids who are like very quickly deleting their accounts, having this, and you're not starting over. Like that's the truth when you get that big. But like, you know, some of the ones they've been taken down are like some of the biggest fitness influencers in the world who have millions of followers who look incredible, by the way, who have just insane bodies, the amount of discipline, dedication.
And it's like, why are you cooking your photo?
Why would you cook it for just not even, and it's not even big. They're just cinching their waist the smallest amount.
You know what I think that is, though? I think it's their own mental health.
For sure. I mean, changing your already incredible body into something else to make yourself feel more secure about it. I get it. It's hard. People talk about my body. We've talked about this before.
I'm always talking about your body.
No, not in the comments the way it used to. You know, you never close your eyes anymore. But like people, I think it's multiple levels. So buying followers and pretending they're real is insane. Just legitimately insane and sad. But then on top of that, changing your photos to feel better about yourself. I do understand the insecurities of people talking about your body as someone has had it happen, but it makes it to where no one will ever take them seriously again. I think, and it's I have a lot of like hope and belief that, I mean, there are fitness influencers doing it right. You know, Bumstead's, you know, he's doing incredible stuff, like all the stuff he's doing, talking about mental health, how transparent he is, things like that. You know, different athletes are finally being more honest about the things they're doing to get where they are in their goals. But I think Joey Swole Goob might save all of us.
All right, so I will comment it as unbiased as I can.
Please.
And I'll also provide, I think, some, not perspective, but background. And so for me, in my opinion, I think a lot of it stems from this has been going on for a lot longer than social media. And so if you start thinking about magazines, think about any fitness magazine, all of those photos are photoshopped.
Oh, yeah, I know that. I mean, like there's, you know, I saw something like one of the Kardashians a few years ago got upset that a non-photoshopped photo of her leaked, and like it was incredible.
I'm sure
she looked incredible, but
also real.
Yeah, but you see it's jarring the way people look now, and there's like all these TikToks and stuff. Like it's girls, they don't have teeth, and they put teeth in. You're like, whoa, what happened? Like as a culture, I don't think it's good that we have this high level of promotion of changing and altering every aspect of your face in general for like a higher level of attraction, appeal, whatever it is.
Well, that's Instagram though, and I think it's
not the way I do it.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, I used to be the same in this level of vanity, to be very, very honest. Like when I first started posting pictures of myself on Instagram, I think it's a sickness, right? Like it's, especially when you're so intertwined in like that bodybuilding world, a lot of bodybuilders are massively depressed in a way that their body will never look the way they want. And the thing they see in the mirror is not what other people see. They only see imperfections. And it is that body dysmorphia that I think drives a lot of this, combined with the fact that the industry lies. The industry lies about this. They lie about supplementation. They lie about steroids. They lie about everything. And so you're almost surrounded by this mirage that allows these things to happen. And so if everything around you is like, hey, it's okay to lie about these things because we're painting a bigger image or whatever, however you want to put it, right?
This is all for fitness, yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if every magazine I've ever been in makes my arms look bigger and my waist look smaller, and then also like everything is slightly okay to lie about because it's all like we're doing whatever, fucking this or that. That's why I never wanted to get into like bodybuilding, right? I loved the idea of getting bigger, getting more muscle, but I saw the back end of what that industry looked like.
Dude, it's rough.
It's disgusting.
I go to a real popular gym, and I can see the toll it takes on these people doing this type of stuff. And
they're killing themselves. Let's be very honest.
Yes.
People who are trying to become professional bodybuilders are killing themselves.
They are pushing themselves to the extreme. but I can't help but admire their discipline on some of them.
Absolutely.
I can't help it.
They're not bad people.
No. But you're playing football. You're killing yourself. You know, you're trying to break world records at running. We're making trade-offs every day.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, I mean, let's talk drug use. Like,
I mean,
you want to talk about like why I don't want to take testosterone or any of that shit?
Yeah.
It's because it's gonna kill your heart. Look at every fucking major bodybuilder who's died in their 40s.
Well, because they were doing more than that. I mean, Rich Piana was the first real big famous YouTube fitness guy.
Yeah, that's the extreme.
But the stuff he was putting in his blood was gack. Like had like a shovel. He would like cut his arm and just stuff in there.
And he was honest about it. Like, fucking kudos to Piana. I think he's probably one of the ones who started the whole let's be real. Like, everyone's on gear.
Yeah, he's the Dark Knight of the fitness world.
You want to talk about fitness vigilantes? People did not like what he was doing.
No, they didn't. They're like, don't do that. And he's like, everyone's on gear. But here's the thing, though. If you do a push-up and you look at your body after just one singular push-up, and then you look at the fitness world, it's pretty apparent that they're doing more than just fitness, right? So I don't understand why people are like, you mean to tell me Reacher isn't just working out of it? No, dude, he's not. Yeah. He's in his 40s and he looks like corrugated steel. Bro, calm down. But there are also good solutions. There are healthy alternatives to hormone therapy. Like, I've just started some recently. You know, if you've had brain injuries, if you've been knocked around, or if you're getting older, get your levels tested. I was just in a way where I wasn't feeling good, and I'm by no means doing anything wild or crazy. I'm doing small level. I mean, I've got messed up joints, all these things. And, you know, this company Blokes has really helped me to live my best version of myself. And like, I mean, even you were saying like, I'm like looking better.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the responsible way of doing it too. Like, let's be very clear. Like, if you are not getting your hormones checked and you're depressed a lot, or you having issues, get your hormones checked, get your blood checked, and then work with an actual company like Blokes.
Yeah. That
is going to take care of you, that has actual professionals. Like, none of this fucking, the big dude in the gym told me I should take this because I'll get bigger.
No, don't do it. Don't do a wrestler scene.
It's weird. All these guys in my gym, they're giving each other COVID shots in the back. We can't say that, but
yeah. They're giving him this season's COVID shots in the back. No, don't turn into like, what's his name in The Wrestler? Yeah. Insert clip here. Like, don't be that. Just take care of yourself. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we know so much about fitness and these things right now, and how deeply connected it is to your mental health. And that was my thing. I mean, I lean on you for fitness advice. I work out 6 days a week. I wasn't getting the results I needed, and boy, stuff was down. Stuff was low. And like, even you were like, damn, dude. Like, because I just, you know.
But you don't know until you get checked.
You don't know. And like, knowledge is power, right? Which is kind of what I want to do with this as a whole, is that knowledge is power, right? You can go from a place where you're homeless with your mom who's slashing tires because she shoveled snow and that's her fucking parking spot, to now jump cut, military reservist, no 10 grand, but you became an officer. So who gives a shit to everything else? Like, we have to use the knowledge we have in the best way possible. And like, that's one of the goals I'm trying to accomplish here. But
no, and I think if literally anyone got anything from this podcast and anything I ever say at all, it's exactly that. Like, I am by no means better than anyone. Like, in any sense of the word. I am fit because I worked my ass off for the last 20 years to be fit. I'm not poor because I worked my ass off for the last 25 years to not be poor.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing is like, okay, take opportunities as they come. There's no such thing as luck. I don't believe in luck. I believe in preparing yourself for an opportunity, and when you see the opportunity, identifying it and taking it. And that's all I've ever done in my life. And I was blessed in a way where I was brought up in less than ideal situations. And so I learned early and identified opportunities a lot earlier than maybe your average kid, in ways that actually mattered, meaning not just in sports, right? Like we talked about, but like in ways that are going to make sure I don't sleep on the street tonight.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, and the same thing I do now, it's, okay, fitness was a bridge. Army was a bridge. I found a bridge and I crossed it to the next place. And then I got into fitness and I found a bridge and crossed to the next place. And then I worked my way into Manhattan freaking business, and I found
training some of the biggest clients in the world. right?
Literally,
Who are some of the celebrities you've trained? Tell me one of them. I know one.
I mean, our gym, like me personally, I mainly ran the gym. I would train clients if they were like VIPs and came in and didn't already have a trainer, because I told you, like, trainers get a little uppity if you try and steal their clients. But I'm like,
yeah, no, I understand.
But I mean, we trained everyone from
like Don Saladino is always like, don't talk to Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don's an amazing guy.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, don't look at
Hot
Ryan
guy.
Reynolds. He's so hot.
Yeah.
We would train, our gym trained everyone from like Naomi Campbell to like Hoodie Allen, like just such a wide array of, and then like C-suite executives who are running the world.
Yeah. Destroying the economy. Continue.
Yeah. Well, they're making money. Sorry guys.
Tell me
But like,
tell me about John Cena. I know you trained him. Tell me what it's like.
So I trained with John Cena, right? So part of what we did with FitOps was we ran it, and when I was running it, it was like, okay, well, dude, I was bootstrapped. Like we had Performix as a donor, but when I came in, that's when all that stuff went down. We're like, hey, we need to make money.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, we're not really giving it a nonprofit. So they're like, go fundraise. So I went and fundraised, and then I loaded up all of our gym equipment into a U-Haul, and I drove it across the country to the next place that I paid however much money to let us host a camp, and we did that. And so finally, we had the opportunity where like John Cena. So John Cena is the biggest donor in history to St. Jude's Fund. I think it is.
That's awesome.
Or Make-A-Wish. I'm sorry, Make-A-Wish.
He's done more Make-A-Wishes than anyone. I know that.
And so eventually he pulled away from Make-A-Wish though, and he was looking for kind of like the next nonprofit that he wanted to attach to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it was like an opportunity, right? We talk about, and he heard about FitOps, and we brought him in. We brought him out to one of our camps. We like intertwined him with the veterans, and he kind of was like, I think this is what I want to do next. And so he was super cool, but also like I could not read him. And so you see John Cena in movies, and he's always in these comedy movies. He's super funny, like just kind of outgoing. Like even his wrestling character is like very outgoing. And he came out to camp, and he was the most reserved person I've ever met. He was just watching, just quiet, watching, like learning, like, and I'm like, is he an asshole? Like, is he not funny? Does he not like us? Does he not like me? Like, what's going on here? And then he went on to raise $2 million for us. And so I was like, all right, I guess he likes us and he likes what we're doing.
Boy, you really messed up that one. You really had no idea what was going on. He was like, I like this. And you're like, I don't know. Should I go talk to him about like WrestleMania? Maybe
Dude, I'm like, should I crack a joke? All right, I'm going to crack a joke. And then
I
he'd
hate
be
The
like,
Rock. You just like walk up to him like, I hate him.
yeah. Hey, how about that Stone Cold guy?
Yeah.
And then you go on his Instagram, and it's nothing but pictures of Stone Cold.
Yeah. I drank a bear.
No, but so yeah, then he came out. He just finished actually filming a movie in China, and it was with Jackie Chan. And if you've ever filmed a movie with Jackie Chan, if you're gonna do an action movie with him, he forces you to come out and train with him in China. It's a weird thing. I didn't know Jackie Chan had this much flex on people.
Yes, it does make sense. He's got that much.
So The Rock went out to China.
No, not The Rock. John Cena.
Or I'm sorry, John Cena. We're talking about The Rock. John Cena went out to China and was just like completely encapsulated in Jackie Chan's whole training school and everything. And he was like, I think it changed his outlook on things. And so he would tell us, he's like, when I was in the WWE, I was in pain always. He was like 280 pounds or something. And he's like, he would have to like physically prepare himself to go out on stage.
I believe it.
Backstage, he would like fix his back, stand up tall, like crack whatever he needed to crack, just from so many years of abusing his body, and also just from being so big.
Yeah. Larger than his body should be.
Exactly. Yes. And then also just jumping off of things, and breaking his back.
He's a very, very athletic performer. Yeah.
And so he got out there, and then Jackie Chan like started training him, and his school started training him, and he was like, oh my God, like he lost 60 pounds.
Yeah. Still huge.
Still huge. He started doing like mobility training and started doing all this other stuff that he really wasn't exposed to or just didn't understand. And he like, for lack of better terms, it's like, this is probably what saved my life. He learned Mandarin randomly. I mean, that's just
oh no, I remember that.
Yeah, people didn't like that part.
I remember that.
But so I think he just overall gained like such an appreciation for not only Jackie Chan, but the culture that he shared with him and on all the training that he shared with him. And he came back to camp and like, we're getting ready to do a workout and he's like going to work out with us. And we're just, all right, it's John Cena. Let's lift as much weight as we can. And he's like doing like a 30-minute mobility regimen before we even lift a weight, like doing some splits and stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Stop it. Yeah. Put on your blue jean shorts. Stop it. Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, what do you want to do? Like big three? He's like, So we start off with like front squats. And he's like, we'll just front squat until you guys can't front squat anymore. And so we did front squats and
how much weight?
I think we got up to like 355 or something. And I'm like, all right, that's about as much as I can front squat.
That's a lot to front squat.
And he was like, all right, let's go down to deadlift. And I'm like, okay. And so we started like 355 on deadlift. And he had this thing.
After front squatting that much?
Yeah, he had this thing where he's like, gentleman's grip. I'm like, not familiar with the term. He's like, overhand. He's like, gentleman's grip. And he's like, and I'm like, you want me to overhand?
Yeah.
This and so we started 355 overhand deadlifting. I got to 405, and that was, I think, where I capped on overhand. Yeah. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And he just, everyone would get up. We had like a gang of us. It was probably like 10 of us doing it at that point with him. Overhand deadlift, stand up. All right, no, didn't get it, or yeah, I got it. And he just kept overhand deadlift. All right, I can't overhand deadlift over this. So like me and like 4 other dudes at this point were probably still left after 405, and we threw another couple 25s on, and now we're doing regular deadlift grip.
Yeah,
and he's still overhanding. And then I think we got to 495. That's where I called it. I'm like, I can't go anymore. And then there was like 1 or 2 other guys that just kept going with him. And they're like in the 500s at this point. And he is still overhand gripping, just picking it up like it's nothing. And I'm like, this is you like at your weakest.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, he is an extremely strong dude.
Well, I mean, I saw him carry Peacemaker really well. That's one of my favorite shows ever.
But yeah, super nice. And what I think, if you like take anything out of it at all, he's a man that like really lives by his values. He says it often when he talks about to close groups about kind of why he even kind of came on with our mission and stuff. But it was like the way he put it, it was, I've built myself up to be who I am and do what I do through decades of hard work. And he's like, so I'm at a point now in my life where I'm not going to do anything that I don't want to do. And I'm not going to do anything that I don't believe in. And so that was like why he chose to move on from the nonprofit stuff he was doing and come do stuff with us. And that's also like everything he does at that point. He's like, every decision I make now has to be fulfilling.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why he does acting so much too. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, and I think he likes it. And like, but if you haven't seen his Instagram, he's like, that's his like safe space. So whenever he signs on with a brand or anyone, he's like, I will promote your brand on my Twitter or my Facebook, but not my Instagram.
He follows me on Twitter,
and that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
And his Instagram is like, just
his bio is the best.
His brain.
You know, the bio says, I will post random pictures of nothing without context.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
No, it's like, yeah, for you to interpret on your own, pretty much.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, that's really kind of cool and artistic. Like, I like that. I think it's cool that he knows that Instagram is the biggest earning platform when it comes to brand deals, content, all of that. Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to go against the grain, and this is going to be where I just post whatever I want. I like that.
So yeah, that's cool. And then he was a cool person to train with. He's very methodical. He's one of those people who just everything he does, you can tell he has planned every second of it.
Perfect. Who else? Give me some other big names. Come on.
I think one of the wildest training sessions I've ever done was with Peter Berg.
Okay.
Peter Berg is
actor, director. Yeah.
Still to this day cannot get a read on him. He's one of the nicest people I've met.
Yeah.
He's directed everything from like Lone Survivor to Friday Night Lights. Right?
Friday Night Lights, Battleship, a bunch of stuff. He just came out with something that was really good. Opioids, Netflix, whatever that documentary is. I can't remember the name of it right now. It was on. It's really, really good. Let me look it up.
There's no doubt he's a great director. He walks around like Adam Sandler. He's like the epitome of a rich person in New York. He actually lives out in California primarily though, but he doesn't matter what he's doing, where he's going. He's in sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And he walks in and you're like, oh, fuck, this homeless dude just got in here off the street. But no, it's just Peter Berg. His hair is always kind of like a mess. And he comes in to train. His main training he does...
Painkiller.
Painkiller.
It's the name of it. He talks about the Sackler family and all that stuff. Yeah.
So his main training he does is boxing.
I've seen that.
Yeah, he has a whole boxing gym in LA. I've been to it a couple times. It's called Churchill Boxing. It's an amazing boxing gym. He's got amazing coaches in there. They crushed me one of the times I went out there. And he is super knowledgeable when it comes to boxing. It's actually kind of crazy. But yeah, he came in the gym, and my specialty at the time was really conditioning. And so I would just make you feel like I would bring you to that edge of where you thought your limit was, take you a little bit further, bring you a little bit back, and then crush it again. And so I did that to him and pretty much anyone I would train. And he was just so strange because he would randomly ask me the most like divisive questions. Like at the time, this was even pre-2020 when everything went to shit. This is like 2019. And he would be like, so what do you think about Trump? And I was like, what do you mean? And then he'd be like, so...
was he testing to see if you were based or not?
I don't know. And I'm like, test? And I don't know this dude's position.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything as far as where he sits politically.
Well, he probably has two of them, one in work and one at home.
One, and then he's like, so... He would
don't know anything about it.
He would say the most charged questions to me mid-workout. And I'm like, are you trying to throw me off my game?
Yeah. What are you on, hot ones? Yeah.
And then like, so we got through the workout after like me like dodging 20 million questions where I'm in like the middle of freaking Manhattan trying not to get canceled before it was even cancel culture. And then he's just like turns into a total fucking bro. And he's like smoked out of his mind as far as like the workout, laying on the floor, just like, fuck you.
Do you have that video?
I have that video. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put it in the thing. I want to see it. Yeah.
And I'm like, this dude I don't know what is going on. And so we finished the workout, and then there's one of our other clients is just kind of hitting a boxing bag, just straight up for exercise. He spends like 30 minutes going over basic fundamentals with this dude, like just walks up to him. And dude has no clue who he is, I'm sure. And spends gives him a free session in boxing. And I'm like, nowhere did they're like, hey, you're training Peter Berg today. This is how I thought this was going to go. But it was one of probably the, I don't know, most raw and like not fulfilling, but like, I don't know, reinvigorating sessions I've ever had with like a celebrity client.
Yeah. Because you got to meet a real person.
Yeah, beyond real. He was imaginary real. It's like what I imagine it would be like to meet like Theo Von in real life.
Yeah.
Like this dude has no freaking filters. I'm not quite sure what's going on in there. I can't tell like what's the Sean Strickland thing that's going viral right now. He's like, I can't tell if you're a genius or retarded.
Yeah.
I think there's some kind of mixed autism in here.
Yeah. I don't even know that guy. He's probably got autism. I don't know. Everything he says is so good.
And I mean, like, it's clear that I think Theo Von has the levels of genius, but Peter Berg is clearly a genius in what he does.
I'm pretty sure he's interviewed him.
But also, like, I think he was trying to incept me and see, like, what the fuck I was going to say to half these crazy ass questions.
Yeah, he wanted to know. He wanted to know where you stood. It's so interesting too that was your experience.
I don't think he even cared where I stood as much as he wanted to know how I would react.
You're childlike if you really choose your friends based on their political beliefs. If anything, you should have all of them.
Yeah.
Because nothing could be more of a nightmare than being surrounded by just people that are all exactly the same as you, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you should have variety is the spice of life, and you should embrace it wherever you can. I mean, that's one of the things that took me and you on our greatest adventure.
Spice.
Variety is the spice of life. Embracing adventure. It was a little show with a little creator.
Oh yeah, that's
named Jimmy. And we're gonna close with this. This is a story no one knows. No one's heard this. So I'll start.
Okay.
But my daughter, my youngest daughter, had initially told me that I should look into a guy called MrBeast. And this was 21. Was it 21 or 22?
Oh, I think it was 22.
Let's go 22. Whatever. It's on my phone. I'll figure it out.
It feels like it wasn't that long ago, so it might have been 21.
Yeah.
But
and I had seen a few guys go on there that I know. Sean with Matt Bach and all those was on there, Sean Matston and a few guys, and like, you know, honestly, we're way outside his demographic. But my daughter was prime time right in it. That's why, you know, she's also who's like, you should look at Austin. Like I was like, I'm meeting him next week. It was the same day she told me. But
she want to be my manager?
maybe I need to be mine. But initially, I remember, I don't know how, but I got connected to, I don't want to say her name, the young lady who's recruiting us, right?
Well, she's not with him anymore.
She's not with him anymore. I still don't want to say her name.
Okay.
I don't want to violate anybody's privacy.
Yeah. HIPAA.
Yeah. Well, it's just not everyone asks. You know what I mean? Yeah. But she and I had started talking, and then the first idea was there was going to be 6 of us, and we were going to go catch a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that?
It was like 100 dudes released on an island, and it was like the lone survivor from this military crew.
Yeah.
Would win the island, I think is what the idea was.
Yeah. And who all was in it? Me, you, Austin, Donut, Grant. Who am I missing? Who is number 6?
Was it Brandon?
Eckert? Was Eckert in there or someone?
I don't remember.
There were 6 of us, though.
Yeah, there was 6.
I can't remember, and I feel bad. Oh, Josh, the guy Josh who was with us at the time.
Okay.
Josh was with us. I believe it was him. And it honestly sounded great. Whoever won got the island.
Yeah.
But people always end up taking the cash.
Well, we also were assuming that was the 100th or 100 million episode.
That was the time. It was going to be the 100 million episode, and they were like, "All right, you're going to do this." And it started getting to what I can only describe as scary, which is they started asking more and more questions of us. Yeah. Like, "Hey, can you guys skydive?" And I was like, "Sure. What do you mean?"
You're all scuba qualified, right?
And they're like, "Well, we're thinking about having you guys parachute in." And I was like, "Okay, well." And someone along the way was like, just kind of go with the flow. It'll change 100 times. And they're like, hey, can you do a hard water landing? And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they're like, will anyone do it? And I was like, no one wants to do that because it's very dangerous. Yeah. If you do pull it off and you drop you pull your cutaway right before you get to the water, you've got to be in water deep enough to not hit anything. And then you got to swim there. I was like, it's just an absolute nightmare. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And then that changed to a point to where they're like, all right, we just need you 3 to come to North Carolina. So it was me, you, and Austin. And
yeah, they pretty much scrapped the whole concept. And they're like, but we want you guys to come.
Yeah. Which I'm convinced the day of was a whole different plan than what we even executed, right? Because it didn't make sense to bring just one extra along, which was Austin. Yeah. It ended up being, they're like, this is in case one of you guys gets sick. I think that whole... We found out later, this is a spoiler, we found out later that they were using a different production crew and that they were, because they're constantly filming. They have like an A team and a B team. It's not based on skill or anything. It's just A and B. And so that they had like 20 things planned. We only did like half of them.
Yeah.
Because like stuff, sometimes you film something, even this, you film a thing, it just doesn't work or whatever.
Well, they're shooting so much. Yeah. They're doing so many different things. Like they have a whole team of guys just conceptualizing challenges.
Yeah.
And then, all right, we're going to do this challenge.
Yeah.
It's almost like how Network Spring shows the pilots.
Yeah.
And so
but they're doing it every day.
Yeah. He's just bringing ideas to pilot. And if it works, it works. And that's like he gets to the point where this video wasn't going to see the light of day.
Yeah, because we shoot it, and before shooting it, we don't even really know what we're doing anymore. Because I think the original idea was that we would rescue Austin. That's what I think.
Really?
I think that, because that makes the most sense, because they'd even talked about like putting him up in a place we had to break him out of a Rubik's Cube. It was going to be a life-size Rubik's Cube or something, and we would have to rescue Austin, which I think would have worked.
Yeah.
And if we do it, we get a prize. But still unknowing, and it's late, and we're showing up, and we're all just like sitting in the car, be like, well, whatever happens, you guys just want to split it? And we're like, yeah, sure. And we all shake on it. Cool, that sounds great. Because like, it's one of those things where you're like, we're just very much so going along for the ride. And we get there the day of, they're like, I see my face on the side of a car. I see your face on the side of the car. And my first thought is, oh no, they don't have Austin's face on the side of the car.
Yeah.
Because they still hadn't made a decision yet. And then away we went. Did everything. You cheated at the very end. At the very end.
How did I cheat?
You read your instructions before you got in the car.
I read it.
Yeah. No. So I love honestly that it came down to that. Because
yeah.
I saw you and I was like, I'm not catching him. Even with your hurt foot and everything, you were so far ahead of me because I was out of the parking lot. So it comes to a culminating event, the whole video, which you can find it. It's on Ludwig's channel.
Thanks, Ludwig.
Yeah, thanks, Ludwig. We're training and we're like chasing each other and it's back and forth the whole time.
It was a treasure hunt.
A scavenger hunt.
Yeah, a scavenger hunt across
the entire state of North Carolina. Yeah.
And like we were just driving so much. And that was the one thing that I was like, they were like, hey, we want you two guys to be in on this video because you guys have such good banter. You guys are so good at talking and talking shit to each other. And then they put us in two separate cars for the entire video.
And they're like FaceTime. And I'm like, I can't FaceTime it.
Yeah, but don't break any laws.
Don't break any laws. And it's also hard in that part of North Carolina to drive because some parts of our interstate, others are old highways. Like we went to Greenville, Wrightsville, all over the place. Like literally where I spent my Marine Corps career. We're just like dipping around.
Like, I know that spot. Can we stop real quick?
Huh? Yeah. And they're like, do this. Or they would, I would get ahead. He would get ahead. They would move us back and forth through the thing. You got a penalty. I got a penalty, whatever. And so we finally get to the place. We steal the stuff from the sumo wrestler.
Giant sumo guy who had no clue what was going on.
Didn't understand a lick of English. And they're like, you guys wrestle him. Erik cheated first. He went first and just jumped. And they're like, no, he didn't. He's like, I didn't say go. And then they reset us. And then we both like beat him a second later. America, like I literally like swept his arm and just like grabbed it. And my thumb got caught.
It almost made it harder for us because the fact that they're like, all right, you got to get that paper. And then I just went and grabbed it because I'm like, I'm not giving him a chance.
Yeah.
And then they reset us. And I'm like, well, now he knows my move.
And so Eric's over there figuring stuff out. I'm in and out. I get in the car. I'm in the car. We take off. I pull the thing out and it says run 1,000 meters north or whatever. And I was like,
it was like
no.
northwest.
And by the time I got it turned around, I saw you go in and it didn't even work. But
well, I sprinted through. It was like a college campus.
It is. It was it's ECU's campus, and it's the lake they use for like.
And I just sprinted, and I lost Chandler. Like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And so I'm running. It felt like I was running forever. And then I finally get there, and it's just Jimmy standing over a shovel and some dirt. He's like, did you run here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the paper said run.
Yeah.
He's like, why didn't you drive? I'm like, so you didn't disqualify
this is before
me.
Jimmy was working out.
Yeah.
So and I could see you and I was just like, it was the distance. It wasn't the speed. It wasn't my ability. I was so upset, but
I had that start.
I was like, if I have to lose, I'll lose this way. Like, honestly, because you would have lost the other way. Because that's the thing. They weren't telling us any given point. And by that time they had told us like half the bits aren't working.
Yeah.
Not stuff we had shot, but stuff they had planned because we were supposed to do the Rubik's Cube thing and everything else.
Can you imagine how long that would have taken?
Dude,
we spent the entire day. It was like 4 a.m. wake up to
in Wrightsville Beach.
That was like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And that was with, I think, us doing like 6 or 7 of the.
We did a car drop. We did a safe. We did.
The lightsaber safe was so cool.
The lightsaber safe was cool. We did the pond. And then they went down there to find the thing, and nobody could find it because they were broken.
They broke when they dropped them.
Yeah.
And I was in my suit that they gave
me. The cannonball thing ate up at least half the time. And then we were like trying to.
We were shooting ornaments out of a cannon.
Yeah.
Like giant Christmas ornaments. As soon as they came out the cannon, the wind just.
It sliced.
Sideways.
It sliced. I was like, how do I aim it? And they're like, and I was like,
and then one of the cannons was down, so we had to share a cannon.
Yeah. So it took all of the like race aspects.
So if you're just getting into content creation, I want you to know the biggest content creator in the world is all about adapting and overcoming. Okay. Yeah. Like he was all about it. He was like, all right, next thing. Like he wasn't pissed off. He was just like, next thing.
Well, it was cool to see his genius in motion, like as he was in his head editing, directing, doing all of it, and then also handling like YouTube taking down one of his videos. He was upset about that because he shot a firework indoors, but he spent an hour with me. I know he did the same with you, and I was like, "Why do you do that?" And he's like, "It's their rules." He's like, "They have rules. I have to play by the rules."
Yeah, he's not above the rules of the platform. Like he lives within the exact same rules as us. Yeah, he probably has someone he can email directly. But his video got taken down for the firework and he wasn't like, screw them, they need to put my video back. I'm MrBeast. No, he was like, all right, chop up the video, take out the firework, fix it, re-edit it, post it, do it within the next 10 minutes because every minute is thousands of dollars for him.
Yeah. which he's using to fund his next projects. But yeah, we ended up splitting it, and we both went on like our first family.
You technically won a Camaro, didn't you?
I won a Camaro, yeah.
You were like, I'll take the cash.
Well, they're like, do you want it? And I was like, and you know what's funny? I could use that car now more than ever because I need one for my daughter. But even still, I was just like,
it was like a 2016 Camaro.
It's a car. I would have gladly taken it, but I still was just like, no, I'm going to do it. And I had time because my thing was I had to wait until it came down. You decided to drop yours and smash it.
I can't tell you as a kid watching specifically Fear Factor, and they're always dropping cars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, as a poor kid growing up, I'm like, why the hell would they drop that car?
Yeah.
I got up there and they're like, you want to drop it or wait 10 minutes? I'm like, drop it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, come on. He's going to be ahead of me. But no, it was fun. It was forever a core memory and something I'll never forget. And I'm honestly happy that we were able to share that together because
I'm so happy that you and her specifically were like, no, you have to do this because I wasn't going to do it. I was like, I didn't know who MrBeast was.
I mean, I didn't either. She was just my daughter.
They wouldn't tell us what we were going to get for it.
No, they never told us anything like until it was like, by the way, you get this. This is paid for by Venmo. Yeah. By the way, you get this. This is paid for by whatever. Yeah.
Well, you and Austin are like, yo, usually the videos are $100,000. And I'm like, usually? And they're like, yeah, sometimes they're like 30. And I'm like, sometimes they're nothing. I'm like, so we could walk away with absolutely nothing. And I had a wedding for one of my best friends that weekend. And so I went straight from MrBeast to his wedding the next morning.
I remember. Yeah. And then that had happened. And I travel a lot for cheer, but we don't really do vacations as if we've tried to do them more intentionally. And that's because of Christy. But like we hadn't done like there's no other thing happening other than this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful we're able to do the things we do, but like, when you're like bumping up against got to be here this day or whatever, it's different. So we went on like a legit family vacation. Awesome. Like had a blast. Went to South Florida. Enjoyed every second.
We were probably the lamest participants they had on when it came to that. They were like, so what are you guys going to do if you win the 100,000? Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to take my family on vacation. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I think I'm going to do that too.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Cool.
You sure you don't want to like buy a Maserati?
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Sounds like a horrible investment.
How inflation works?
As soon as I drive that off the lot, I'm going to lose $30,000.
Yeah, I'm not getting AdSense the way you guys are. Come on, dude. I'm doing the best I can.
They're like, can you? Okay, good dad over here.
Yeah,
we're never having dads on this show again.
Yeah, basic. Well, no, they've got a bunch of them. Sean and a few other guys who've done really well. Sean Hendricks and stuff. But no, it's just it's funny we never talked about that. But like, I've always loved it. I remember when you're like, "Do you just want to split it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever."
Yeah.
And then like, true to your word, you did it. I mean, I would have done the same. But you never know with some people. You never know with anybody, to be honest. Like, so you never know anything, is what I'm saying. But like,
money will make people make poor decisions. But that's why I asked you in the beginning. I'm like, no matter what this is, it was before we knew whatever the challenge was. We didn't know what it was going to be. I'm like, do you just want to split this money?
Sure.
Because I'm like, you know what? Like, you and Austin, I'm like, you both are very good friends to me. Like,
yeah, same.
I would never want this to ruin or just put any kind of negative on our relationship. Yeah. And you immediately were like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, there's no point. We're already on this great adventure.
Yeah.
Like we're doing something like so few people will ever have the experience for. We have, that's what I always think about, like these moments in time where like, why not just embrace it? And like, it's just really cool that we've been able to have these moments in our life. And I'm just really grateful for you. And I just want you to know how much I care about you and I love you. And I'm just so glad you're a part of my life, man.
Do you want a hug?
No, not on camera. So, but that's all for us here. Tell us, you sit down. Okay. Go check out echelon.com. But that's
echelon.com.
Don't drink Echelon. Go there.
Guys, I own this energy drink. So every time you buy one, it maybe helps my son go to college if that's in his plans.
Yes. So this is
just
Echelon,
one of the sons.
Echelon pre-workout in a can. Check it out. It's on military bases everywhere. Follow
and Amazon.
Real Erik Bartell wherever you find him. Parting thoughts.
Join the military if you want to get ahead in life.
All right.
Sponsored by the Army.